for the House to be able to commence the business. So what we will be seeing now until that quorum is achieved is that members will be walking in, and once the number is achieved, the sergeant at arms are keeping tabs with the numbers of the senators getting into the chambers. Once achieved, the clerk will be alerted and the speaker will call the House to order for the commencement of the House business. Back to the highlights of this afternoon's sitting is that the county statistics bill is part of the three bills that are in the order of business for this afternoon to be read for the first time. Two bills are also lined up for debate, and this will be resumption of a debate that was interrupted on different dates. The Division of Revenue Bill, this is a bill that is originating from the National Assembly, Bill number 14 of 2024, a bill that is co-sponsored by the Senate Majority Leader. This is Honorable Aaron Cheriot, and this debate was interrupted on Thursday, 25th April, the year 2024. So it is part of the business that members will this afternoon be looking at or considering the Division of Revenue Bill. This is to provide for the equitable division of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments in the 2024-2025 financial year. The purpose is also to provide for the equitable sharing of the revenue raised nationally between the two levels of government. And the debate, it's a bill that is at its second reading stage. So members who may have not been able to participate in the debate on this bill on the 25th of April, then this afternoon they will be taking a chance to give their views on these bills. We will take a look at this bill a bit later, but in the other bill that members will also be resuming debate on, well, yeah, the quorum has been achieved. Allow me to hand you over to this live broadcast. Good afternoon.
Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Take your seats, honorable senators, and need to report a petition. Honorable senators, I hereby report to the Senate that a petition has been submitted through the clerk by Mr. Laban Omusundi on restricting county governments from hiring law firms for legal representation in court cases when the office of the county attorney is established. As you're aware, under Article 1191 of the Constitution, and I quote, "Every person has a right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority, including enacting, amending, or repealing any legislation." Honorable Senators, the salient issues raised in this petition are as follows. 1, as per the Controller Budget annual reports on county government's expenditures, huge sums are allocated for external law firms for representing county government in courts on various matters, despite the establishment of the Office of the County Attorney pursuant to the Office of the County Attorney Act. That a significant number of the court cases are influenced by deliberate administrative decisions, with full awareness that there will be no personal accountability, potentially leading to lucrative arrangements for certain individuals in the public sector to receive kickbacks from the law firms. And third, that the aforementioned issues defeat the objective of devolution aimed at bringing services nearer to ordinary citizens. Further, that the substantial amounts of public funds paid to external legal firms could be channeled to address healthcare services in the counties, which are currently in dire state. That the petitioner made several attempts to resolve the concerns presented in the petition with the Controller Budget and the Office of the Attorney General, all of which have been unsuccessful. Consequently, therefore, the petitioner prays that the Senate investigates this matter with a view to do the following. 1, establish a legal framework designed to restrict engagement of external legal firms with a view to safeguarding public funds and preventing excessive expenditure on external legal fees. And secondly, implement measures to deter intentional and incorrect administrative decisions, ensuring that responsible officers or individuals are held accountable for their actions that could lead to legal proceedings. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 238-1, this petition is hereby committed to the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations for consideration. And in terms of Standing Order 238-2, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading this prayer, which is today, to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. Now, there is another petition by the Honorable Senator Okiya Omtata. That petition is dropped. Next order, clerk. Senator Omtata, you were not present when I called you out. Proceed to present your petition.
Mr. Speaker, sir. National Reconstruction Alliance. I hereby present a petition that has been submitted to the Senate by Mr. Bernard Muchere, CFE, concerning public money stolen to fund the standard gauge railway project. As you are aware, under Article 119(1) of the Constitution, and I quote, every person has a right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority, including enacting, amending, or repealing any legislation. Honorable Senators, the salient issues raised in this petition are: A, that the petitioner, as a fraud risk management consultant, upon undertaking a fraud examination of the standard gauge railway, brackets SGR, project, alleges that the project did not meet the criteria for a public project, neither did the contract and related debt qualify as a public contractual public debt. That the conceptualization of the standard gauge railway project was not captured in the Vision 2030, First Medium Term Plan 2008 to 2012, and Kenya Railways Corporation Strategic Plan as required under Section 68G of the Public Finance Management Act 2012. That there is no evidence showing if KRC, as the procuring entity, invited SGR tenders as provided under Section 51 of the Public Procurement and Disposal Act 2005, carried out the tendering process culminating in a contract agreement as provided under Section 52 to 69 of the Public Procurement and Disposal Act 2005, and whether the Public Procurement Oversight Authority, IPOA, now Public Procurement Regulatory Authority.
Order, Honorable Senator, Senator Fonandi. Senator Fonandi, you're out of order. Take your seat. And let Senator Omtata be heard in silence. Proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. The authority, that is whether the Public Procurement Oversight Authority, now Public Procurement Regulatory Authority, published a notice of award of the EPC treaty, EPC turnkey commercial contract as provided under Section 46 of the Public Procurement and Disposal Act of 2005. that the EPC turnkey commercial contract purported to have been awarded to China Roads and Bridges Corporation did not meet the criteria for a Kenya public contract, and therefore the preferential buyer credit entered between KRC and CRBC to finance the supply and installation of facilities, locomotive and rolling stock for the Mombasa-Nairobi SGR in July and October 2012 for a total contract sum of USD 3,804,192,784.72 was a private contract, hence the loan cannot be termed as a public debt. That the government of Kenya signed up as the borrower for the preferential buyer credit to an agreement contrary to sections 47.1 and 51.1 and 2 of the PFM Act 2012, which provide that loans may be raised on behalf of the national government and the national government entities which are organs under the GOK. That the only written preferential buyer credit loan agreement published was loan number 2014006 of USD 1,600,000,000 dated 11th March 2014. The loan agreements for these other two loans, number 201408 and 215023 of USD dollar 2,584,028.87, and the other one of 1,482,775,029 and 43 cents, dated 11th May 2014 and 3rd December 2015, respectively, were not published. That section 51.1 of the PFM Act 2012 and section 25 of the Kenya Railways Corporation Act, Cap 387, empower the Kenya Railways Corporation as a national government entity to borrow independently. However, KRA's statement of financial position as of 30th June 2015, brackets 2014/2015, financial statement recorded accumulated losses of Kenya shillings 18,514,313,370. Therefore, was not creditworthy to have been granted any loan. That the alleged loan of USD 5,086,329.58 from the Exim Bank of China to fund the standard gauge railway was not paid into the consolidated fund, contrary to Articles 206(1) of the Constitution 2010. Instead, forms of irrevocable notice of drawdowns substituted for payment of loan into the consolidated fund. That the credit facility of US dollars 5,086,329,058 extended by the Bank of China is USD $1,282,136,273 above the contract sum of USD dollars 3,804,192 $3,804,192,785. According to Articles 2.24, 2 clause 4 and 2 clause 5, 2.4 and 2.5 of the preferential buyer credit loan agreement, all proceeds from the credit facility will be paid to the contractor and suppliers of the SGR project in China, and goods, technologies, and services shall be purchased from China using this credit facility proceeds. This means the excessive loan will not be injected into the Kenyan economy, as it will be retained and help the Chinese economic growth, which appears to be the incentive for granting excessive loans. That the SGR grants from the government of Kenya aggregated to Kenya shillings 644,796,686,819 shillings, while in the SGR escrow grants aggregated to 50,838,624,096 for the 2024-2015 to 2019-2020 financial years, with an addition of Kenya shillings 644,796,686,819 shillings. Your government of Kenya grants, which make the total Kenyan taxpayer money spent on the SGR project approximately Kenya shillings 695 billion 635,310 695 billion 635 million 310,915, with over expenditure of Kenya shillings 237 billion 748 million 058,854 shillings from the contract sum of Kenya shillings Mr. Speaker, I need some help to read this. I'm not able to read this. The printout is too small for me. I asked Senator Lametien to come and help me read it. Is it allowed?
Well, you could have done that before.
I had asked her earlier, but then she was in at the matter of
just struggle and finish. You're doing well.
May I pick my glasses?
Please pick your glasses. And
yes, complete. Please.
And run. The senator has left the chamber.
Clerk, proceed to call the next order, please. Next order. Proceed to call the next order. That petition be finalized on Thursday. Proceed, Senator Mtata, take your petition, have a seat, I'll direct.
But I think
I'll give you more direction. Just go take your seat. I'll direct otherwise.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader. Next order. There are no papers. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
The Honorable Richard Onyonka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is a notice of motion asking the county governments to set aside land for the planting of indigenous trees, fauna, and flora. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to give notice of the following motion: that aware of the crucial role played by indigenous trees, fauna, and flora in the purification of air and combating of climate change, protection against floods, and water pollution in the field of medicine, nutrition, timber production, among others, appreciating that the national government, through the National Landscape and Ecosystem Restoration Program, plans to increase the national forest cover to 30% by planting 15 billion trees, and in furtherance of the program gazetted on the 13th November 2023 as a public holiday to allow Kenyans to plant trees, concerned that the government is yet to establish elaborate measures for the growing and protecting of indigenous trees and to involve such crucial players as the county governments, hence impeding the sustainability of the program. Now, therefore, Mr. Speaker, the Senate should urge the 47 county governments to set aside land and resources to be used in the planting and protection of indigenous trees, fauna, and flora in support of the initiatives by the national government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Statement pursuant to Standing Order 53-1, the Honorable Senator Fernandi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I beg to read request for statement on the mishandling, mismanagement, and lack of proper coordination of Kenya National Working Race Team. Mr. Speaker, sir, I raise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the mismanagement and poor coordination of participation of Kenya National Working Race Team at the World Athletics Race Walking Championships. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should, 1, explain to the Senate the circumstances that led the National Working Race Team to miss the World Athletics Race Walking Championships that were held on 21st April 2024 in Antalya, Turkey. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, disclose the reasons why Team Kenya members were detained and forced to sleep at Ergan International Airport in northern Cyprus for 2 days and later forced to travel back to Kenya. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, state the level of preparedness of Team Kenya for the Paris Olympics, considering that the working race team did not manage to participate in the championships in Turkey that also served as Olympics qualifier. Finally, Mr. Speaker, outline any actions by the Ministry of Sports and Athletics Kenya have taken against the persons responsible for the poor coordination that led to non-participation of the working race team championship, Mr. Speaker, in the other. Mr. Speaker, I have another statement of Betika. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have another statement you have approved, but it's not on order paper.
Proceed.
On Betika.
Proceed.
Request for statement on the operations of Shop and Deliver Limited trading as Betika. Mr. Speaker, sir, I raise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the failure by Shop and Deliver Limited trading as Betika to pay out winnings in breach of the betting rules. In the statement, the committee should, 1, explain any regulatory oversight exercised by relevant government agencies over the operations of betting companies, especially in preventing underage gambling, as well as upholding fair play and consumer protection. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, clarify whether Shop and Deliver Company Limited, trading as Betika, meets all the requisite conditions for registration of betting companies and is duly licensed to operate in Kenya. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, state reasons for the prolonged delay for up to 2 years in some cases and failure by the betting company Betika to pay out winnings to several bettors. Mr. Speaker, number 4, outline any corporate social responsibility programs undertaken by Shop and Deliver Limited, known as Betika in Kenya. And finally, state whether the Shop and Deliver Limited is a tax compliant, having paid all the relevant tax to the Kenya Revenue Authority, KRA, providing the details on the company's tax contribution from the financial year 2017, 2018, 2018, 2019, 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021, 2021, 2022, 2022, 2023, and 2023, 2024 to date. Mr. Speaker, I submit.
The Honorable Senator Gloria Oroba.
Thank you, Speaker. This is a request for statement on the ongoing flood situation in Nairobi City County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations on the ongoing flood situation in Nairobi City County. In the statement, the committee should furnish the Senate with a detailed evaluation of the existing drainage infrastructure within Nairobi City County, encompassing its capabilities and identified areas susceptible to vulnerabilities. Provide a breakdown of ongoing projects aimed at maintaining or enhancing drainage systems, including any partnerships or cooperative efforts with pertinent stakeholders to mitigate flood risks. 3, state strategies and timelines in place to promptly tackle the perennial flooding experienced in various parts of the city and its environs, and establish sustainable resilience measures to mitigate the recurrence of such deluge in future. And 4, delineate any initiatives undertaken by Nairobi City County to foster public awareness and active participation regarding flood mitigation measures. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Senator Dr. Boni Kalwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 to seek a statement for the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on the status of County Pension Fund for employees of the Kakamega County Government. In the statement, the committee should respond to the following. 1, establish the total number of employees employed by the county government of Kakamega. 2, state the amount of money the county government of Kakamega pays into the staff pension fund and the National Social Security Fund for these employees per month, and table the remittances made towards these funds from September 2022 to date. And finally, Mr. Speaker, 3, explain any instances of non-remittance of pensions deductions made on salaries of staff, stating when the pending remittances will be paid. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator for Nyamira County, Honorable Okongo Mogeni.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 531 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget concerning the utilization of conditional grants for the financial year 2020-2021 in the County of Nyamira. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide detailed report on how the following funds from the conditional grants for the financial year 2020-2021 were utilized. 1, Kenya shillings 278,847,760 for Universal Health Care Project, Kenya shillings 60,409,894 for development of youth polytechnics, Kenya shillings 146,215,617 for fuel levy maintenance fund, Kenya shillings 114,705,300 for Kenya Urban Support Program, KUSP, and finally Kenya shillings 198,509,110 shillings for World Bank loan for National Agricultural and Rural Inclusive Growth Project. Mr. Speaker, in the statement, they should explain the procurement methods employed, disclose the companies that bid and won the awards, disclosing the names of directors of the awarded companies. Finally, give details of the names of the implementers of the aforementioned projects, the names and location of beneficiaries of the projects, and hospitals that benefited from the grant. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, honorable senators, at this juncture, allow me to invoke Standing Order 45-2 to rearrange the sequence of today's order paper for the convenience of the House, of course, which is the Divisional Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bills number 14 of 2024. As you're aware, this bill has some timelines. Clerk, I know there are certain statements that were not contained in the order paper. How many are they? So that we can dispense of those, if they're not many, before we proceed to order number 11. Okay, there is only one statement by the Honorable Senator for Garissa. Proceed, and thereafter we will proceed to order number 11.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the management of ongoing countrywide floods and disaster measures, and particularly in Garissa and Tana River County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state reasons for the late response of school reopening postponement countrywide by the Ministry of Education, owing to the tragic loss of lives of teachers and students in Garissa and Tana River County and other parts of the country during these floods. 2, state proactive measures taken by the Ministry of Roads and Transport to address ongoing floods and their impact on the road network, stating measures to regulate the use of boat operations and pricing along flooded highways, for example, in Madogo, Garissa, and other affected areas. 3, disclose safety assessments and regulations for boats operating in flood-prone areas, including emergency response mechanism and measures to prevent future tragedies. 4, state actions taken by the Ministry of Roads and Transport to expedite repairs following road closures during recent floods. 5, provide reasons for the lack of monitoring the water levels of lakes and rivers. For example, monitoring the water levels of Lake Victoria to the point it broke its banks, flooding Sindo Town in Homa Bay County, and state response measures in place, noting lack of preventative mechanism on protecting river or lake banks countrywide. 6, inform on the coordination efforts with relevant authorities to address flooding along the Tana River and its impacts on environs and particularly on transportation routes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Clerk, proceed to call order 11.
Order number 11, the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bills number 14 of 2024, second reading, resumption of debate.
Now, yes, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I beg your indulgence and that of the House. This is a bill, like you've said, that has statutory timelines. And it's unfortunate that it took quite some time, but I must still commend that our committee did a very impressive job with this bill. But, Mr. Speaker, given the very strict timelines, ideally, when we moved the bill on Thursday last week, if we had known that we will go beyond Thursday last week, then perhaps that was the juncture at which we would have limited debate on the matter. Unfortunately, we allowed, and many of our colleagues spoke onto the bill. There are still others that are yet to speak, and I know, given the importance of this bill, perhaps they may want to speak to it. But we need guidance, Mr. Speaker, and to agree as a House, given that tomorrow is a holiday, and therefore we have only 2 working days, strictly speaking, which is today and Thursday, Mr. Speaker. And that on Thursday, the National Assembly proceeds on a 1-month recess, a period during which they will be considering the budget estimates and taking on stakeholder inputs. It will be quite unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, if we get to a point where by Thursday we have not concluded on 3rd reading and the budget estimates are considered without the input of the Senate on an important bill such as this, on account of the fact that we could not conclude this bill. Therefore, the request that I want to make is if you can guide us into a consensus on either members be allowed to speak extremely freely, but we have the guarantee that people will not leave the chamber and will conclude 2nd reading today, or we limit time so that members, but either way, members must stay in because we have strict timelines. We must vote today for 2nd reading and conclude 3rd reading on Thursday, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I'd wish to request that perhaps if we find, no, not today, 3rd reading on Thursday. Mr. Speaker, if we can agree on the time that our colleagues take so that then we conclude on it, but still insist and request members not to leave the House until we conclude this particular order paper today. So I don't know if 5 minutes is too little a request. Some are saying 10. I don't know what the leaders on the other side of the aisle think. I think 5.
Let me hear from the minority side before I guide on this matter.
Speaker, we were discussing and we agreed. I think 10 minutes would be okay.
Now, honorable senators, limiting debate normally happens before any of the senators stands to contribute or speak on a bill. However, we are faced with a very peculiar situation where we may allow senators to speak for the 20 minutes as given to them by the standing orders. However, if we go that route and conclude beyond Thursday, then whatever product will come up with may not inform the debate on the other side. As the majority leader has said, they are proceeding to engage on the budget, and the decision here must be carried by the National Assembly as they do the budget. Alternatively, we limit time through consensus. We limit time of debate through consensus so that we allow as many as of those who would wish to speak to this bill, so that we move time, and if we have to be late, then we conclude this debate by Thursday. That is the very latest. So, honorable senators, can I then seek your concurrence to limit debate first? Okay. Now, to what extent can we limit the debate going forward? There's 5 minutes and there's 10 minutes. So the minority leader and the majority leader, you had agreed. You'll speak for your respective sides.
I want to request, Mr. Speaker, I know, give me the mic.
And whatever you say shall bind your side.
Yes, I know members of this House. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, if it gets beyond 4:30 to 5 while people are still speaking, we may struggle to get the mandatory 24 delegations. because I know people will start hurrying out. Therefore, I want to humbly plead with our colleagues, let's do 5 minutes so that by around 5 we take the vote. I humbly plead.
Yes, Senator Mazayo. Senator Mazayo? And whatever you say shall be deemed to the position of the side.
I've said it earlier, that 10 minutes would be quite okay.
Now, honorable senators, we have two sides in this House. The minority side, Senator Boni. We have the majority side and the minority side. The minority side is proposing 10. The majority side is proposing 5. If you add the two, it will give you 15. Divide by 2, we come to the neutral position. It's 7.5 minutes. So 7.5 minutes it is. Senator Omtata, you had spoken for 2 minutes. Now you have 5.5.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the 2 minutes, I would kindly request you don't count them because they were for, if we go that way, then I have to speak for 18 minutes.
Proceed then with the 5,
okay.
With 7.5.
Mr. Speaker, sir, my comment was to be on section 2 of the Act, which, which lifts the definition of revenue from the Commission on Revenue Act, whereby the revenue in that section is defined to exclude some revenue that is raised nationally. Yet, Mr. Speaker, sir, may I be protected from Senator Cage? My Lord, Mr. Speaker, sir, all Articles 201, 202, and 203 of the Constitution are very clear about what kind of revenue should be shared. The revenue is the revenue raised nationally, but when you go to Section 2 of the Commission on Revenue Act, it defines a revenue that is not in the Constitution, and it reduces the amount that's available to the counties. And so this House going forward should consider reviewing Section 2 of the Act to ensure that the revenue shared is a revenue raised nationally, not the revenue that whoever was behind that Act thought would be shared by the parties. The Commission on Revenue Act excludes money that is retained as appropriation in aid, yet this money is factored into the budget, the national budget. So we should really look at that fact and make sure that we review the definition of revenue. Otherwise, we are doing injustice to counties because we are not sharing the revenue raised nationally. We are sharing the revenue raised nationally minus certain revenue that is not allowed. So, in my submissions, I also add that the Senate as a House should adopt the higher figure of 415 billion and not the lower figure proposed by the National Assembly, which is 391 billion, I think. So I request that the Senate approves the higher margin and sticks to it, and I pray that the side that the last time broke the ranks does not break the ranks this time, so that we can ensure that at least our counties get money that can enable devolution to go ahead, especially in the context that already the amount of money is reduced due to the fact that the definition of revenue, which we are relying on, is unconstitutional because it's not revenue raised nationally. Mr. Speaker, sir, with those few remarks, I return the mic to you.
Senator Methu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to make my comments on this bill. Honorable Speaker, in reference to Article 96, I find this one of the most important bills that we process. Not that the other bills that we process here are not really as important, but a bill that will denote the money that we send to the counties for the next financial year is a very, very important bill. Honorable Speaker, for a long time, and many of us, when we get an opportunity to go to the villages, we talk to our people and remind them that our work here is to defend devolution. By defending devolution, Honorable Speaker, every time we speak about functions, we defend that functions must go to the counties. But there are no functions without resources. So you have to always speak very, very strongly about pushing resources to the county governments. Honorable Speaker, looking at the bill that we are dealing with, and looking at the money that we are speaking about, Honorable Speaker, I do not want to say that the National Assembly, because it is not fair to speak about another house, Honorable Speaker, was not really fair in terms of the distribution of the national revenue vis-a-vis the devolved, the money that you are sending to the county governments, Honorable Speaker. But we then have to look at different things. And we have a very good committee, the Finance and Budget Committee of the Senate, that has always been very, very prudent. Honorable Speaker, the proposal, and this is where I want to really stress my contribution, Honorable Speaker. The proposal to send 415 billion, which has been carried and which has been proposed by the committee, the Senator Aridoba Committee, Honorable Speaker, is what we, as the Senate, must canvass at around the money that we want to send to counties, Honorable Speaker. It will be a big growth and a big win, especially to devolved units. Honorable Speaker, right now, and it's a statement that has been raised by the Senator for Garissa, Honorable Speaker, we have been grappling with the question of the floods that have hit our country, Honorable Speaker. But you know that, Honorable Speaker, disaster management is a reserve of the county governments, Honorable Speaker. If we cannot send monies to the county governments, and then we are asking for services from the county governments, Honorable Speaker, we shall have been very, very unfair to them, Honorable Speaker. I don't want to speak more than that. I want to say that we support that we send more money to the counties, and that is my submission. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Abdul Haji.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also rise to make contribution to the bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, I came prepared to speak for 20 minutes. I'm a bit saddened that we have reduced the time to 7 minutes. You know, Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't want to claim I'm an athlete, but I came prepared like a long-distance runner. I think Senator Cherargei will know. Maybe even Senator Sigei will know that long-distance runners usually suffer from something known as runner's diarrhea. By the time you approach 20 kilometers, you have a problem holding your bowel. At this point, I'm having the exact opposite. I don't know what to speak about and what to cut down. But Mr. Speaker, I'll get to the point straight away. Mr. Speaker, I support the position of the Committee of Finance and Budget. And Mr. Speaker, I had an opportunity last week to sit through the contribution and submissions by the Chair of Budget. And I was very convinced that the committee did a good job in coming up with the fair share of the counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Chair talked about reasons why and the formula they came up with the figure that they had suggested in their report. It touched on issues of the lapsing of the medical equipment service program, issues of the national government priority projects, the community health promoters programs, new national social security fund, the new social health insurance fund contribution, the annual salary increments. These are all reasons why, as senators, we should support the position of the committee. Mr. Speaker, sir, as the senator before me mentioned, Senator Methu, we are meant to protect devolution and to fight for devolution. I really don't want to see a situation where we go to the same position that we were the last financial year, where we agreed to a lesser amount for the counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, as per the bill provided by the National Assembly, it is a bit sad that very obvious mistakes were made in the bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the Division of Revenue Bill 2024, there is a table where the National Assembly was trying to explain on how they arrived to the adjusted equitable share base of 374 billion. That was a mistake to start with, because the amount of the equitable share base was actually 387 that we passed last year, 385 that we passed last year. And based on this table, Mr. Speaker, sir, they attributed to the increment of 16.6 billion in the budget for the counties, which is not the truth. It is not the reality. The actual increment, if we go by the base of the last financial year, they are only increasing a mere 6.5 billion. Mr. Speaker, sir, this we cannot support. And Mr. Speaker, sir, the other obvious lie that the Treasury is trying to make, and there's also one thing that we have to make very clear to the Ministry of Finance and National Treasury, that they are not meant to only fight for the national government. They are there for both the national government and the county government, and they need to be fair in their presentation. Mr. Speaker, sir, when they mislead members of parliament and they mislead the president, it is very unfair. Because, Mr. Speaker, sir, what the government or our country, Kenya, has raised as revenue this year, compared to what the share the government is taking and the share they want to give the county government, we have raised revenue to a total of about 387.4 billion in excess, Mr. Speaker. And out of this 387.4 billion in excess of the revenue that was raised, a mere 6.1 billion is what they want to share with the county government. Mr. Speaker, sir, I urge senators that this time around, we really need to have a bipartisan position and support the position of the committee and refuse any other persuasion from anybody, so that we can stand up straight and say that we stood with the county governments. And the senators that spoke before me, even last Thursday, they said, we do understand that we have problems in the counties. There are problems in the counties, but that does not mean because of those problems, we should not give them more money. We are going to sort those problems, and we are working as Senate to sort those problems. And which brings me to the last point, Mr. Speaker. As a Senate, we need to start giving proper feedback to the county governments. I think it is time we stop letting pollsters out there start ranking counties, ranking governors, ranking county assemblies. That should be the work of the Senate. We need to rank these governors so that the governors know nani alikuwa namba moja and who became last, Mr. Speaker, sir, so that we can inspire other governors, other county government, and other assemblies to be able to improve. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I think this is one thing I would want to suggest to this House, that from time to time we need to bring the good Senate, the good governors to this House, and let's give them positive feedback, so that the bad governors can look up to those ones and also feel ashamed. And we also, when we do the rankings, we will be giving proper feedback to the citizens of those counties and they will know how to vote next time. Mr. Speaker, sir, I submit. Thank you very much.
Senator Karungo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to also support the report by the committee on the division of revenue bill. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm tied in between, giving more money to the counties, just to give governors more money to misappropriate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm tied in between sending more money to expect better hospitals, roads, and ECDs, only for the governors to divert those funds and to have projects that look like handouts kind of projects, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm tied in between giving more money to the counties, just like all the other senators would want to give more money to the counties, to have more money in the emergency funds for the county governments, while our people are suffering floods, landslides, fires, accidents, and all that, Mr. Speaker, where the money for emergency fund is diverted right, left, and center, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm tied in between sending more money to the counties to pay the pending bills, only for the governors, some governors, refusal to pay or to honor those pending bills, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally, I'm still tied in between to send these monies to the counties. Well, the same governor refused to appear before the committees to account on how they have used these monies, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with that, I think as much as we want to vote for more money to the counties, we should call upon two committees, that is the CPIC and CPAC, to as well assist the senators who pass this kind of legislation or who support this kind of revenue bill to do their oversight. They should not at any time become an impediment when it comes to oversight of these funds, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as much as I'm saying I'm tied in between, I know sending monies to the counties is one thing and oversighting the same amount is another. So I will support this report by this committee to make sure that we send more money to the counties. That is 415 billion. That is about 24 billion more than what the National Assembly had suggested, Mr. Speaker, because I call it a suggestion. The members of parliament in their NCGDF, and that one, Mr. Speaker, they have increased their monies that go to CDF, Mr. Speaker. We should as well increase more monies to go to the counties. And as we increase more monies to the counties, Mr. Speaker, we ask those counties that are mandated to keep check of these governors that they at least help this Senate to oversight those monies, Mr. Speaker. If I give you an example, the other day, and I send my condolences to the families of my Mahiu residents, those who lost so many of their loved ones through the flooding, Mr. Speaker. The two counties, that is Kiambu and Nakuru, they have emergency funds, Mr. Speaker. But when we ask the governors, they only make noise of the national government, saying that the national government has not sent disaster money, Mr. Speaker. And if you read the law, if I can give you an example of Kiambu County Emergency Fund Act, it says that the County Assembly of Kiambu should appropriate 0.5% of the whole budget of the county of Kiambu. The current budget of Kiambu County, Mr. Speaker, is 21.5 billion. 0.5% of that amount is 107 million, Mr. Speaker. 107 million Kenyan shillings. That is enough money to help those people of my Mahiu, to help other people in Kiambu County who are moving from their homes, running away from landslides, running away from the dams that are already filling up, Mr. Speaker, and running away from these floods, Mr. Speaker. So I urge this House, as much as we want to send more monies to the counties, let's join hands to put the governors to account, Mr. Speaker. I agree with the Committee on Finance and Budgeting, Mr. Speaker, saying that they're increasing these monies because you are giving more function to the county government. The county governments have been given a task of matching up 1.5% of the employees' deductions when it comes to affordable housing, Mr. Speaker. And when this affordable housing bill came to my committee, we as a committee, we noted that, and we said 0.5% of all the monies of the Affordable Housing Fund should also be subdivided to the county government, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have Social Health Insurance Fund, that is CHIF. We have the County Aggregation and Industrial Park, where the national government, when they give 250 million, the county should match up with another 250 million. That's where we're increasing this. But we ask the county government, and especially my county, where we have simple mind kind of projects of handing out fish and chicken and manure and napier grass. We should use this amount to give major projects. The level 4 hospitals, there is no medicine. The level 5 hospitals, there is no medicine. The Githunguri level 4 hospital is complete, but it is a shell of a new hospital. No doctors, no staff. It is not equipped. It has nothing, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we say, as we send more money to the counties, let's make sure that the governors are put to account. And when a senator stands, like myself here, and mention those issues I mentioned about my county, may it be counted. I'm doing oversight, but not politics, Mr. Speaker, because I know how much money I send to my county. I must ask the governor how he spent that amount, Mr. Speaker. So I support. Thank you.
Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important bill. Mr. Speaker, the Division of Revenue Bill divides the monies to be budgeted and used for the national government functions and also for devolved functions. Mr. Speaker, the Senate is there to protect devolution and to make sure that devolution works. Mr. Speaker, there has been challenges. The Constitution devolves certain functions like agriculture, health, and especially health. There has been a lot of confusion, Mr. Speaker. There are a lot of projects which are done by the national government for devolved units, especially in the health sector. There has been issues as to machines which were sent to all the counties in relation to scans, and these machines were sent without functioning, Mr. Speaker. It was like buying a car without an engine, and you go and you expect to use it. So this equipment, which is very expensive, has been left lying in each single county, Mr. Speaker, and yet that money was used from the national government instead of it having been devolved in a division of revenue bill. Similarly with agriculture, there are many things, even the big problem of fake fertilizers. If this agricultural factor was devolved, Mr. Speaker, probably we could not be having the sort of scandal we have in the nation, and many people calling for the resignation of the minister in charge of agriculture. Mr. Speaker, if it was devolved, then we'll be questioning, or the farmers will be questioning their own governor as to what has happened. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, while this division of revenue bill is already set and has already been passed by the National Assembly, as we look forward, Mr. Speaker, we need to see the devolved units by the Constitution devolved to the counties. Mr. Speaker, a similar problem happens with disaster management. There is a National Disaster Management Authority, and the counties also are supposed to have funds slated and slotted for disaster management in the counties. Mr. Speaker, when tragedy happened in Makueni, the governor of Makueni had to use his own funds, his personal funds, Mr. Speaker, to rescue people in Suldamtu, while we have already a budget for such disaster management, and the national authority just stays put and is seen to be doing nothing across the country, while the counties suffer, Mr. Speaker, Why the counties have to seek for help from the national government? Yet, they are supposed to have devolved funds, Mr. Speaker. They are supposed to be sufficient when disaster strikes. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter which needs to be relooked again so that monies are available in the counties in the event of disaster. The disasters are happening in the counties. You know what has happened to Tana River. That's why the Senator Mugatana is not here. You know what has happened to Makueni, Nakuru, and many other places. And even disaster management is surveillance, making sure all the dams which are likely to break down are reinforced in good time, making sure that houses which are submerged have not been built on the riverbeds, as it has happened in Machakos County around River Athi, in Athi River. Mr. Speaker, we have to look into this in future to make sure devolution gets its fair share and that functions which are devolved, Mr. Speaker, they are handled at the counties. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, the monies have to be accounted properly. When there is audit queries, we summon governors here, Mr. Speaker, they should show up. The governor from Makueni was on 22nd summoned by CPIC, Mr. Speaker, and came to account and has yet more questions to answer in relation to different budgets. And that should serve as an example to any other governor. When called by the Senate, show up, come and answer the questions. And Mr. Speaker, finally, while these monies are being accounted, and from the reports which we give from this Senate, Mr. Speaker, even some of the governors, you know, there's perpetual succession of government. We need to see the past governors also account. And if anybody has misappropriated county monies, which we allocate here, then, Mr. Speaker, somebody must return the money, face jail, and all the consequences which go with misappropriation of monies devolved to the counties to serve the people. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Fernandez.
Thank you very much. I think this is one of the bills that every senator must speak to it, because, Mr. Speaker, this is one of the reasons why Senate is in existence, as per Article 96 on protection and deepening and widening of devolution in this country. Mr. Speaker, for the first time, I'm proud of the Finance Committee for this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, for making their voice heard. Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud, Mr. Speaker, for they are doing a good job. I know in the last session, Mr. Speaker, we had push and pull. And I know, unfortunately, and the sad reality for Senator Sifuna, my good brother, he will not have a field day of blasting and lambasting us in baby showers and funerals, because as a Senate, we have taken a position that we are going to demand 415 billion that will come to our counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you remember in the last session, we stuck at 385 billion, and we agreed with the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I support the position of our committee that let us stick with 415 billion, 0.9 billion to go to counties. I know, Mr. Speaker, we're having challenges. Some of our governors are becoming aviators. Like my governor, Mr. Speaker, 1 billion cannot be accounted for the stall projects like newborn mother units in Kapsabet, creameries in Kabiet. Mr. Speaker, and therefore, even as governors become aviators, Mr. Speaker, as young people would call into the streets, we must ensure, Mr. Speaker, that every coin be accounted for. I think for the first time in this session, Senate is speaking with one voice. I know county governors wanted 450 billion, Mr. Speaker. I saw the chair of Council of Governors speaking to press instead of speaking to Senate, Mr. Speaker, so that he can tell us why they need 450 billion. But, Mr. Speaker, with the reality on the ground, because they normally say, vitu kwa ground is different, Mr. Speaker, is we are agreeing that 415 billion will be enough, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you look at, and I want, Mr. Speaker, I saw somebody, I don't know whether I had it right, one of us saying we cannot call out National Assembly. We must call out National Assembly for their laziness and larceny, Mr. Speaker, and ineffectiveness and moribancy. Mr. Speaker, how can we be considering latest audit accounts to be 2019-2020 when the budget was not more than 1 trillion, and we are using that, Mr. Speaker? National Assembly must be called out because they are becoming dangerous and cancerous against the growth of devolution, Mr. Speaker. How can we be giving national government is getting 2.5 trillion, while counties is getting paltry 391 billion. That's just like one ministry, Mr. Speaker. So the National Assembly must be called out, Mr. Speaker. They must work on ensuring that the latest account, audited account should be, the latest should be 2022, 2023 at maximum, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope they are taking notes, even if they are going on recess, Mr. Speaker. The second point I wanted to make, Mr. Speaker, on this shareable of 415 billion, we are in as much as, and I want to advise governors, Mr. Speaker, and I know the chair and the committee is aware of this. Governors should be careful in this aspect of matching. We have seen on CHPs, we have seen on industrial parks, Mr. Speaker. It will always affect their government, Mr. Speaker. But I want to challenge Mr. Speaker, even as we discuss this cake, which is very elusive, which cannot satisfy everybody. The governors and as a county public accounts, most of the county governments are falling back, Mr. Speaker, from their own source revenue. You find, for example, Nandi has a potential of 630 billion, but they are collecting 300 million. A county like Nairobi should be collecting up to 50 billion, but they are collecting way below because they are not doing justice to our people, Mr. Speaker. Their own source revenue. Governors must, Mr. Speaker, there is another elephant in the room. I know CS Moses Kuria has said that civil servants should be given contracts, Mr. Speaker. But what is happening in counties is wage bill is eating away development money, Mr. Speaker. Yeah. I saw Kisii in the development expenditure of control our budget doing down there, Mr. Speaker. Nandi is following, they are struggling down there in terms of development expenditure, Mr. Speaker. The biggest threat is wage bill. In Nandi, we are doing like 50% to wage bill. I think the only county that have had us 34.5 was Isiolo. We were being told that yesterday. The wage bill issue must be a national crisis among counties. Even as I have had the civil servants want to go on strike because of what the CSO said about giving people contracts and young people preparing their CVs. But the biggest danger in counties is wage bill. Mr. Speaker, you have been a governor. You have experience. I'm told in some counties, somewhere in Western Kenya, some people were just hired to carry the governor's seat, like in Asantehene or in the Bulawayo history of Zimbabwe, Mr. Speaker, carrying a seat. In Kakamega or wherever it is, and carrying even a VIP toilet, Mr. Speaker. Kwani, how many times does this governor go to washrooms that he needs a toilet within 3 hours function, Mr. Speaker? We must be serious in how we spend our money, Mr. Speaker. Unless he is eating wrong food or not very good food. Mr. Speaker, and we are budgeting for the same, housing, hospitality, everything, Mr. Speaker. But you find non-essential stuff. Mr. Speaker, you go, a job that should be done by one person is done by 3 people. Being a secretary, T-boy, cleaner. Those are non-essential staffs, Mr. Speaker, that should be repeated. You have seen doctors, now, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, in 30 seconds, our doctors are demonstrating there. But when you tell governors, they want to blame the national government, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am ready for mediation. Let us go for mediation. Let us ensure counties get more money, but with accountability. I submit and support with amendments, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii pia kutoa kauli yangu kwa mswada wa ugawaji wa fedha kati ya serikali za kaunti na serikali kuu. Mheshimiwa Spika, swala hili ni swala muhimu sana kwa sababu fedha hizi ndio zinazopeleka huduma katika kaunti zetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza kabisa ni kwa wakati wa kongamano la Devolution mwaka jana, la ugatuzi mwaka jana kule Uasin Gishu. Serikali ilitoa kauli kwa watatoa zile huduma zote ambazo hazijagatuliwa. Lakini mpaka sasa hatujaona chochote, Mheshimiwa Spika, kama swala hili, na tukiangalia budget ya mwaka huu ambao tunaizungumzia, ina maana kwamba swala la kugawa zile huduma ambazo zilizobakia, ugatuzi wa huduma zilizobakia, litakuwa ni swala ambalo litachukua muda zaidi kuliko vile lilivyozungumziwa na rais mwaka uliopita. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu hiyo ndio tunaona kwamba fedha zimebaki vile vile bilioni 385, kwa sababu mwaka jana tulipitisha 385 na wamepropose kuongeza bilioni 5 peke yake ili zifike bilioni 391. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia kila kaunti imeongeza gharama. Kuna miradi ambayo imeweza kukamilika na watu wakaajiriwa kazi, huduma za kuendesha miradi kama ile zote zimeongezeka Mheshimiwa Spika, na hata bei za bidhaa pia zimeongezeka kwa sababu kumekuwa na ongezeko mara kwa mara la bei za mafuta katika nchi yetu. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, kuongeza bilioni 4 ama bilioni 5 kwa zile pesa ambazo zimetengwa kuja kwa kaunti ilikuwa ni makosa makubwa kwa bunge la kitaifa. Mheshimiwa Spika, mwongozo tulitoa wakati tulipojadiliana kuhusiana na kauli ama taarifa ya bajeti, budget policy statement, tulisema kwamba pesa ambazo zitakana kuja kwa kaunti ziongezwe ziwe ni bilioni 415, na nafikiri bunge la kitaifa lilipuuza kauli hiyo kwa sababu wangekuwa wamezingatia hawangeweza kuleta hesabu ile ya 385. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia kuna masuala mapya ambayo yameibuka. Kwa mfano kodi ya nyumba ambayo imeletwa hivi juzi muambapo county na wafanyakazi wao wote wanastahili kulipa. Tukiangalia malipo mapya ya afya, hiyo pia imeongezeka na zote zimeongeza gharama katika bajeti za kaunti zetu kuhusiana na malipo yanayolipwa. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, pendekezo la kuongeza fedha hizi mpaka bilioni 415 ni sawa kabisa, na tumeona pia Mheshimiwa Spika, kutoka ugatuzi uanze zile pesa ambazo zinapelekwa katika kaunti zetu zinapungua kiasilimia. Tukiangalia mwaka jana ilikuwa 14%, mwaka huu imefika 15%. Kila mwaka zinashuka. Hiyo haionyeshi kwa taswira nzuri ya ugatuzi katika nchi yetu. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tungependa kuunga mkono pendekezo la kuongeza mpaka bilioni 415. Vile vile pia tungependa kuona kwamba sheria ya audit ama sheria ya uhasibu wa fedha inabadilishwa ili kuwe na uwezo kwa wakati wameshindwa kupitisha zile hesabu za mwaka uliopita, iwe ni automatic, fedha zinapita ili ziwe sambamba na zile pesa ambazo zinakusanywa katika nchi yetu ya Kenya, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa sababu hatuwezi kutumia hesabu za mwaka 2020, miaka 4 iliyopita, kuamua pesa zitakazokwenda kwenye kaunti zetu kwa mwaka ujao. Hili si swala la ikiwa hesabu zetu za bunge za kaunti za serikali za kaunti, Mheshimiwa Spika, zimewekwa mwaka 2022 23 ndio zinazoangaliwa sasa. Itakuwaje serikali kuu hesabu zake hazijaangaliwa kisawasawa mpaka zikafikia mwaka ambao tunaofuata? Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, hili swala la kucheleshwa kwa kukaguliwa kwa hesabu za serikali zinachangia pakubwa pesa kidogo kuja katika kaunti zetu, kwa sababu hatuwezi, katiba inasema hatuwezi kuangalia kitu chochote isipokuwa hesabu za mwaka uliotangulia ama mwaka wa karibu kabisa ambazo zimeweza kuidhinishwa na bunge la kitaifa. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, hili ni swala la kikatiba na ni lazima tulivalia njuga, kwa sababu tutaendelea kulalamika kila mwaka hesabu pesa zinazokuja ni kidogo, lakini tukiangalia kwa undani ni kwamba tatizo liko katika bunge la kitaifa ambapo hawaangalii kwa haraka uhasibu wa fedha ambazo zimetumika katika serikali. Mwisho kwamba Mheshimiwa Spika ni kwamba ukiangalia mapato ya serikali yanaongezeka. Juzi wameanzisha hii malipo ya kila kitu kwa akaunti moja, na ukilipa huwa kuna ile inaitwa facilitation fee ya shilingi 50. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, ikiwa kuna transaction 100 milioni 1 kwa siku, ina maana wamekusanya milioni 50. Ikiwa atakusanya milioni 50 kila siku kwa mwezi ni karibu bilioni 1.5. Hii pesa hii Mheshimiwa Spika haiingii katika hesabu ya kaunti zetu. Pesa hii nafikiri inatumika kwa serikali kuu pekee yake, kwa sababu fedha zile hazijaweka katika orodha ya fedha ambazo tunastahili kupata kama kaunti. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, haya ni masuala ibuka ambayo ni lazima tuyaangalie, kwa sababu haiwezekani fedha ziamuliwe na ofisi kuu, hazina kuu. Hii hazina kuu tulikuwa tuna mapendekezo ya kuifanya kuwa huru, independent kabisa, ili tuone kwamba wakiwa wanaangalia mahitaji ya county, wanaangalia mahitaji ya county sio kwa sura ya serikali kuu, waangalie mahitaji ya county kama taasisi huru ambayo itahakikisha kwamba kuna usawa katika kugawa rasilimali katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, asante kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to support the bill, the revenue division bill. Honorable Speaker, as you are aware, the budget that is available to this nation is about 2.5 trillion, of which only what we are asking for the counties is 415 billion. And I know, besides, the national government has many obligations like paying debts and all these things. However, most of productive activities have been revolved. The sector of agriculture, water, health, these are one of the most critical institutions in this country. But however, the budget given to Ministry of Health is almost 100 billion. And when maybe the counties are getting less than $1 billion or $2 billion for the health sector. Besides, today, the CPA signed by the national government is going to affect the counties so much, because salaries have to be increased, other emoluments for the doctors have to be increased, and therefore that will be factored in the new budget of the counties. Two, about 700 million, 800 million shillings have already been transferred to the counties again. That is the industrial parks, the medical equipment facilities, the staff, the universal healthcare business, the NSF, pensions are going to be increased, salaries increase by annual increment is going to happen there. So I think while the current increase by SRC and the national government is less than 6%. It's only 5.6 billion. While all these services that are devolved, it's still required for the governors to pay it. Honorable Speaker, we have institutions that is actually duplicating the work of the governors, of the counties. The institutions, agencies like water agencies, which is almost over 20 agencies that are doing the same money and the same work the counties are doing. Water, mostly roads. And I don't see why we should be duplicating. As much as we have, as the title said, we have stringent measures to make. We have little money to spend. But when you duplicate, when a county is actually scooping or making what do you call a water pan, and then another agency is making a water pan in the same county, I think that beats the purpose of us to come to deal with all measures of stringency. Then I think it's a high time this House, as a Senate, we need to come up with a bill that will now make all the agencies, the regional agencies, to be devolved back to the functions to be devolved. And we don't even need them because as it is, the county is now doing almost all the work for these agencies. Honorable Speaker, one other factor which is overlooked, and I don't know how we are going to handle as a House. We have a bill now on bandit bills. It seems the bandit bills, everybody is avoiding to talk about it. The bandit bills, governors don't want to pay it. Probably most of it has come from the previous regimes. But government is a government. The government, whether it is the one of yesterday or the one of today, is the same government. It takes responsibility for all commitments that have been made by the same government, whether it's the county or national government. Almost 1.2 trillion actually unpaid bills. And here we talked the other day that actually many Kenyans have been rendered pauper. They are not able to afford the bills. They cannot go for health services. So it's a high time this business of paying bills should be stopped. I mean, paid once and for all. What we're saying again is, and I want to say again here, that we must follow the BVM Act, that first charge for every financial year, paying bills must be cleared. Because as it is, it seems governments don't even care about the paying bills. They tend to increase it more and more, thinking that the next governor will pay for them. And then they make everybody think that way. Then that means we are going to continue adding the paying bills. That must be stopped. I think the audit reports, I'll request the CPEC and CIVIC to take a very serious action on these things. Because as it is, honestly, it is not sustainable to be increasing paying bills every day. As much as we appreciate, and I know some of my colleagues are talking about the county issues, the governor is not the county. The governor is only somebody elected. But the money that's going to the county, we shall not be challenging it. The thing is, we must deal with the governor as an individual, and we shall not control money going to the budget to the county simply because a governor is not a friendly governor with a senator or anybody else. There is a way to take measures. This House has all the constitutional, the constitution that can be put in place where we can deal with the governors. But when you say that there's no need of taking money to the county, I think next time, and many of us here today going tomorrow to be governors, and we will cry the same way they're crying now. So I think what we need to do is we need to separate the two. That county money is not owned by the governor. And therefore, whatever what belongs to the counties must go to the counties. And if the governor is misappropriating it, then we deal with the governor as an individual. With those few remarks, I beg to support.
Senator Sifuna.
Mr. Speaker, aside or different from the Senator of Nandi, I have always been proud of our Finance Committee that is chaired by Senator Ali Roba. In fact, last year, I was trying to plead with my colleagues that we adopt the report of the Finance Committee which had proposed that we give 407 billion shillings to counties as opposed to the 385 that had been passed by the National Assembly. Needless to say, my position then put me at odds with many of my colleagues in this House, and they were very unhappy every time I stood to speak and remind them of the options that were placed before this House and the choice they exercised. And they tried to paint me like a bad person. And as I say, Mr. Speaker, once bitten, twice shy. I will not be, taken in by some of the good sentiments that we are hearing coming from the senators here. I will wait for the actual vote. I will wait for the actual vote, because even last time, I heard very good things being said about how we need to support our counties, but on the day of the vote, I saw colleagues taking a totally different position. So I am looking forward. I want to see Senator Haji's vote. He has spoken very passionately. I want to see how Cherargei will vote, because that is where it counts. Mr. Speaker, number two, Mr. Speaker, reading the report of our committee on finance, I am a bit surprised by one thing. Mr. Speaker, if you see the submissions by the Commission on Revenue Allocation, the Commission on Revenue Allocation is the body mandated under Article 203, Mr. Speaker, to, among other things, use the criteria set in 203(1) to determine the shareable revenue for county governments. I am asking myself, how is it possible that last year the Commission on Revenue Allocation was proposing 407 billion shillings to go to counties, and this particular year they are proposing a lower amount of 391. I do not understand, and I would want a conversation with the CRA so that they explain to me. Under those criteria set out under 203(1), Honorable Speaker, if you look at D, one of the criteria is the need to ensure that county governments are able to perform the functions allocated to them. And if you go to 203(1)K, Mr. Speaker, another criteria is the need for flexibility in responding to emergencies and other temporary needs. As you are well aware, many of our counties right now are inundated by flooding or with flooding. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the county governor of Nairobi called the leadership, members of parliament and the Senate from Nairobi for a meeting. And people were extremely upset to see me in the same room with the governor. It is as if people expect that every time I see my governor, I should go on his neck or punch him in the face. When we do oversight, that is not the expectation. At a time of disaster response, it is very possible for Sifuna to be reasonable and sit across the table to undertake a very detailed conversation on the emergency disaster response that is going to towards assuaging the situation of the people of Nairobi. But I've seen very interesting comments that now Sifuna has been pocketed because of a picture of a meeting in a public place in the presence of other leaders and in the presence of the media. But the point that I am making, Mr. Speaker, I think that if I'm going to be pocketed, I will not be pocketed in a public place. And the Speaker knows that it is impossible to pocket Sifuna, at least not publicly. It cannot happen. So I want the people of Nairobi to relax, that the job that they gave me to do, I will continue to do. But the reason I bring up...
Senator Sifuna, just leave the chair out of that line. Proceed.
I withdraw, Chair. Chair, the point that I was making on the question of disaster is that many of our counties are actually overwhelmed. We have about 900 million shillings for disaster response in Nairobi. And what most people don't understand is that disasters in Nairobi is a daily occurrence. We need to be able to enhance the capacity of county governments to be able to undertake this function. And this is why, Mr. Speaker, this year, I really beg our colleagues to vote for the higher amount as proposed of 415 by our own committee. Mr. Speaker, counties are also facing very difficult times because of high cost of living and, of course, the introduction of new taxation, which is something that, if you look at the CBK survey of market perceptions of January 2024, Mr. Speaker, I have that document here with me. And the perception is very grim, that because of the high cost of living, especially the inflationary trends, and because of the increased taxation and increased cost of goods, many of these counties are struggling. And it needs to be factored in the calculation of the final amount that goes to our counties. Mr. Speaker, of course, there is the question of pending bills. And as this House knows, out of the 460, the 160 billion plus of pending bills owed by all the 47 counties, Nairobi alone owes 107 billion in pending bills, which is 66% of all the pending bills owed by county governments. Mr. Speaker, our own Parliamentary Budget Office, in their report of February 2024, this is the 15th edition. Mr. Speaker, one of the proposals that have been made here, and I want to thank Dr. Masinde for making some of his recommendations, is that we need to provide and ring-fence money for payment of pending bills. Because, Mr. Speaker, many of these suppliers in these counties are absolutely devastated. People have not been paid for years. Their businesses have been closed, people have been auctioned, and yet we continue to talk about pending bills. That is why I supported the motion that was brought to this floor by the Senator of Narok, that we need to ring-fence money, and once money is sent to the counties, the county governments must make sure that they pay all those pending bills. Mr. Speaker, I want to finally speak on the question of overlap of functions. Mr. Speaker, again, I want to refer you to this report of our own Parliamentary Budget Office. If you go to page 58 of that report, Mr. Speaker, the Budget Office has highlighted areas where there are overlaps, and we continue to tell the national government, please get out of the business of county governments. And I was very happy, Mr. Speaker, when the CS for gender, for the first time a member of cabinet came here and told us, this is not the business of national government, we have no business staying in. And one of the areas that has been identified, Mr. Speaker, you will see, is actually library services. And if you read the report of the committee, the Treasury is deducting the library services money from county government's shareable revenue. But she confirmed herself here that the National Library that is at Milimani in Nairobi here is still in the hands of the national government. So they insist on sticking with the functions, and again, they are deducting money that is meant for library services from the shareable revenue of the county and national governments. Mr. Speaker, this overlap has also been seen in places such as energy, where power transmission...
The time is up, Senator Sifuna. Senator Wakili Hillary.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support the report by the Finance Committee on this particular bill. And Mr. Speaker, the report in itself signifies the importance of this House in ensuring that we protect devolution. And while we do that, Mr. Speaker, there is the headache that cuts across everyone's mind in terms of the additional resources which we are pushing to our county governments in terms of the extent of their utilization and also the use for the implementation of projects which are within the county governments and for the benefit of the people within such counties. Mr. Speaker, this division of nationally raised revenue is aimed at ensuring that there is a possible utilization of those resources to ensure that inequalities which are normally expressed by various county governments at various levels are achieved. And when the committee has gone out of its way to encourage members and also to seek the support in ensuring that this revenue is added to the county governments is to ensure that services to the people are achieved at all levels. And as members have contributed here, Mr. Speaker, the additional revenue that we have given to the county governments is also going alongside expectations that the abuse of these resources is going to be minimized. We have, over time, been talking about governors who are very reluctant to appear before various committees of this House in order to come and justify utilization of resources. We hope that even as this House gives county governments additional resources, the management of such resources, especially when they are called upon to be accounted for, are easily going to be honored in order to make sure that these resources are used for the purpose that is expected. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the services and functions which have been devolved, the national government has devised means and ways within which such resources and services are followed with funds. And this is the basis upon which these resources are enhanced to go to the counties. And as it's been said, we also appreciate the work of the committee that is seeking to ensure that this House does its support to devolution and enhances the mandate that the Constitution expects it to do. And Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the bill, but with amendments as proposed by the Finance Committee of the Senate. And Mr. Speaker, this is one of the most important duties of any senator, to divide revenue and to allocate revenue and follow up the implementation or utilization of that revenue. At this point, Mr. Speaker, allow me to join hundreds and thousands of Kenyans who have been affected by the raging floods, particularly in my home county of Homa Bay, the residents of Sindo Township, Mr. Speaker, one of the most beautiful locations in this country, where the rolling hills of Gwasi and Kaksingri come down to meet the lake. We have lost lives, tens or hundreds have been displaced, but that is not the biggest tragedy. We have seen greater tragedy in places like Maimahiu, and on behalf of the people of Homa Bay, allow me to extend my condolences to all those who've been affected. These condolences, there's a relationship with what we are doing today. Because whatever it is that we'll be allocating to counties, at least 2% of that should be set aside into an emergency fund that would then offer the first line of response in situations like the ones we find ourselves in today. Mr. Speaker, today we are talking about revenue. Of course, many of us in various committees, we spend a lot of time looking at the utilization and the accountability of that revenue. I support the Finance Committee for proposing that we allocate to counties 415 billion. And Mr. Speaker, I would have welcomed even a higher allocation to county governments, because some of the non-discretionary financial obligations that have been cited as a reason for the increased allocation are things that have been introduced by Parliament. Things like new payroll deductions in the forms of housing levy, in the forms of National Social Security Fund, in the form of Social Health Insurance Fund, and the general growth in inflation that has put pressure on wages of employees. Mr. Speaker, the national government or the national executive should have no problem with this position of the Senate or the position of the Finance Committee, because some of the other reasons that have been attributed to the demand on counties are projects that have been initiated by the national executive. We've got the county industrial aggregation parks, which, if implemented, will require county governments to put in place close to 11 billion Kenya shillings over and above their initial plans. And Mr. Speaker, some of these initiatives, you can never have a one-size-fits-all approach to development in a country like Kenya. And we need to go back to history and learn from failed industrial policies. For example, in Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, driven by the then Pan-African dream of import substitution, decided that he was going to do one factory per district. And he tried that in Ghana. And perhaps out of the many districts, there are few factories that thrived, but many of those factories became white elephants. And that is what is going to happen with our county aggregation and industrial plans, because we have used one model, we have set one common budget for the 47 counties without differentiation. We must differentiate because our counties have got different comparative advantages. But then, counties are still required to make matching contributions for the establishment of those aggregation parks. Mr. Speaker, beside the 415 billion that we are dealing with today, let us be alive that the revenues of counties do not necessarily come from the consolidated fund. Counties have got revenue-raising ability. The law allows them to impose certain taxes that do not conflict with the national government. The Commission on Revenue Allocation has estimated the on-source revenue potential of counties to be at 260 billion. Mr. Speaker, if counties were to optimize their revenue collection systems, procedures, and processes, then counties would have at least an additional 200 billion available to them to be able to carry out development. And that would bring the money available to counties to close to 600 billion. Mr. Speaker, that is not a bad amount. And sometimes we might need to get to the point where we are saying we should not be throwing more money at the problem, but we should be throwing more quality, more professionalism, more integrity, and more transparency in counties. There are counties where money is not the problem. And Mr. Speaker, I can cite a few counties where some of the governors, when they left office with a wage bill which was less than 20%. And then 3-4 years later, when these governors are succeeded, you find the wage bills have climbed to 35% overnight. It's not a problem of money many a times. It's just a problem of diligence, professionalism, and integrity. Mr. Speaker, this bill also addresses the equalization fund. And I wish Senator Faki was present. I've seen him around. Because I want to remind him and remind the House, when we endorsed the regulations of the equalization fund, there was a promise, a commitment by the National Treasury that they would revise the regulations, bring them back here, and ensure they were fit for purpose. The regulations were brought in a rush. The regulations were brought to respond to political pressure. And Mr. Speaker, if you go back and look at the regulations on the equalization fund, you will find that it is controlled by the county commissioners. It has representatives of the members of National Assembly and other elected cadres, and yet the Senate, which is a critical part, has been left out. Mr. Speaker, when we come to looking at the conditional grants, which is also another financing line for county governments, we need to tighten the accountability mechanisms on the conditional grants. And just this afternoon, I know there's a member who sought a statement on the NARIB project, which was a conditional grant, which was utterly mismanaged in counties. And we have raised that with the Office of the Auditor General, and the Auditor General has committed to carry out a value for money audit. Mr. Speaker, just the other day, the Senate Finance Committee, led by Senator Roba, and the Senate Climate Caucus retreated to review the FLOCA, the Financing Locally Led Climate Action Conditional Grants. All this is money that is available to counties, but they've been ring-fenced to specific purposes. I have noted that the national government seeks to ring-fence again the Road Maintenance Levy Fund. And Mr. Speaker, we need government that is genuine and honest to its citizens. When we commingled RMLF with equitable share, we were fooling the country. We were fooling counties that we were giving them more money. Now,
time is up. Senator Oroba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I rise to support this bill, Mr. Speaker, I've really thought through some of the sentiments that my colleagues have presented here, and I want to ask this question. Is devolution really working, Mr. Speaker? And you know, I ask this because we are at a time where, as a house that is ensuring that the funds that we send to the county are actually benefiting people in the counties, I want to ask, is devolution working? Because, Mr. Speaker, if devolution is working, the 2% disaster management funds that counties are allocated, money that is with their, they currently have the money in the bank accounts right now, Mr. Speaker. We can't see it working, Mr. Speaker. So even as I rise to support this bill, I have to be alive to the fact that we need to ask ourselves very difficult and pertinent questions, Mr. Speaker, because devoid of this, we will continue sitting here and passing these revenue allocations to the county governments, and nobody is holding any of these accounting officers accountable. Mr. Speaker, I want to just reference some of the reasons that have been formed, the figure that we are now, the 300 billion, Mr. Speaker. If you look at some of the reasons we are saying is that our economy, due to certain reasons, political, geographical reasons, and things like that, were unable to actually meet the targets that we wanted to meet in terms of revenue collection, Mr. Speaker. I'm trying to see where that was noted on the bill. And Mr. Speaker, there is also a reference of how we are affected by the dollar exchange rate and the issues that come with that. Yes, that is on 42, no, sorry. On, yes, 9E. So part of the reasons that influence this is that we have had low ordinary revenue collections attributed to the ongoing geopolitical shocks, and this include the Russia-Ukraine war and the US Federal Reserve's interest rate. Mr. Speaker, you'll see there that we are also indicating that we have financing constraints due to limited access to finance in the domestic and international financial markets. Mr. Speaker, I don't think our governors out there are alive to this fact, Mr. Speaker. Every day we talk about on-source revenue. Every day we talk about how our counties are supposed to actually ensure that their own-source revenue projections are going higher and that they're generating revenue, Mr. Speaker. And none of these governors are interested in that. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I was having conversations with my peers and some of the governors that were there, and I was questioning and asking, where is the disaster management money? Where is the 2% allocation? Mr. Speaker, in fact, the governor of Nairobi has been quoted this morning saying that Senator Gloria Oroba does not know anything about governance, does not know anything about oversight. Yet, I have heard Senator Sifuna today in the House confirm that indeed Nairobi has about 900 million Kenya shillings allocated to Nairobi County for disaster management, Mr. Speaker. We are unable to see what this money has done. What we saw is the governor of Nairobi, Sakaja, go out and pay transport for children who are stranded in Nairobi to go back home, Mr. Speaker. That is not 900 million, Mr. Speaker. Let us also, as we are allocating these funds, let us also be alive to the fact that these governors, these accounting officers are actually not doing what they're supposed to do with these funds. So therefore, when I hear people saying we have to push for more funds, they have to get 400 billion, first of all, Nairobi governor should tell us, where is 840 million? How has he used it for disaster management? The same as Susan Kihika in Nakuru County. She has a 2%, which is a lot of money. She should also tell us. All these counties that have been affected highly, Murang'a County, at least Governor Kangata actually gave proper feedback that indeed he's just gotten 10 million. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to ask the hard questions, and until these people tell us what they're doing with their money, I believe that this money that we have allocated on this bill is enough. And going forward, Mr. Speaker, if disaster management is a function that county governments cannot deal with, let it be brought back to national government so that the national government can deal with it. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I would say, as a defender of devolved functions, Mr. Speaker, it is time that our governors really are transparent with the funds that they have been allocated. The 2% in all 47 counties to deal with disaster management. Let them stop coming back to national government to ask national government to allocate them more money for disaster management when they cannot even account for 800 million, for instance, in Nairobi County. Governor Sakaja owes us an explanation of what he's doing with the money for disaster management. And other than that, Mr. Speaker, they should also consider if they cannot, because I think, and I have a feeling, Governor Sakaja is unable to manage this county, Mr. Speaker. We, as a house that is here to protect devolution, can give him other options. We have seen what has happened in the past, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, I support this bill, and I support devolution to the extent that we should be accountable to the monies that are being given to the counties. Thank you.
Senator Onyonka Richard.
Mr. Speaker, it is a great pleasure for me to have this opportunity to contribute to this very special motion. I want, first of all, to thank a man who's sitting at the corner there, Honorable Roba, the former governor. As my chair, he has been guiding and discussing and engaging us, and I give him total credit, and I salute him with all the accolades. Mr. Speaker, I also want to give credit to the Controller of Budget, the Auditor General, and my committee members, because I sit in this committee that was drafting this report. There's a lot that we have learned in the process, and I believe that, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot that we are suggesting that can make sure that we actually have improvements in revenue allocation and the expenditure of the revenue, and indeed on what the governors need to do. Mr. Speaker, in the process of discussing this year's allocations, a few issues came, and some of them were disturbing me, and I believe that it is the responsibility of this House to come up with the legal frameworks in order for us to cover the gaps and make sure that when this money is actually given to the county governments, the money goes and does what it's meant to do. I am actually proud that we've increased the money to 415 billion shillings. I believe that this is a raw deal, but what is most critical and important, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that at least from last year, we have increased quite a substantial amount of money, which goes into what our wishes and what we were thinking about as a committee, and indeed at this House, because we have constantly been demanding that we feel that county governments need to be given more money. The contradiction of this wish, Mr. Speaker, is that we have also come across amazing things that are happening within our counties. Mr. Speaker, I can tell you, for example, in Kisii County, the report that has come from the budget analysis from the Controller of Budget is that Kisii County has just been able to spend 3.2% of all the total revenue. 3.2. In the CRF account, Kisii County still does have about 4.4 billion shillings, and yet we have got pending bills to the tune of 1.2 billion. We have got deductions of pensions for the workers who have worked from the Kisii County councils and to the ones who have been working in the county government and the county assembly of Kisii. Right now, Mr. Speaker, the amount of money that is supposed to be paid to the pensions is about 3 billion shillings. That is what Kisii County owes its citizens. My conviction and belief in, Mr. Speaker, is that this committee and other committees, and indeed the Controller of Budget and the PIC committee must sit down and begin to engage ourselves. What exactly are we going to do with these outstanding bills, including the pending bills, including NSSF, including the deductions that are going to government, so that we can streamline the functions of our county government so that they can effectively work. Challenges that we face, Mr. Speaker, and analysis with our chairman, the governors have always raised the issue of exchequer releases. Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that even when the Senate does not receive its exchequer releases on time, at least right now, Kisii County government is not complaining that salaries have not been paid. Mr. Speaker, we have had cases where governors are mutilating budgets. After the county assemblies pass their budgets, the governors change the budgets because they want to go and transfer money to the areas where they want to spend that money. Members of the county assemblies are challenged. Many of them are saying what they are being paid is not enough. And yet in reality, we say how they are compromised and they are not doing their oversight role, and we should make sure that we control the members of the county assembly. My position, Mr. Speaker, let us try and elevate what the members of the county assembly are earning from the 98,000 shillings, and let us make sure that we provide them autonomy from the money which is being controlled by governors, even when the assembly is supposed to be independent and is supposed to be oversighting the governors. Many of the governors are unable to pay money to FLOCA, money to NAGRIP. These conditional grants require reciprocal funds, so that then the county government, like Kisii County, just released, I think yesterday, money for FLOCA. And it was only 10 million that was needed, Mr. Speaker. And the amount of money we are getting from International Development Organization and the World Bank will be about 410 million shillings. And NAGRIP, you see donor funds which are coming in, and everybody says how they don't see what these funds are doing. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, on finishing, let us, as the House, make sure we conduct our oversight role. Mr. Speaker, finally, I beg this House, let's get out of Nairobi. Let us go on Senate Mashinani. Let us go and see the projects that county governments are doing. Let us talk to the public. That is how we can build confidence on our country and make sure that the public gets the services they get. I hope that we'll be able to get the funds which finally can build a library like the one which is in Nairobi, beautifully architecturally as an African drum design, which has got all the books in the world. But if you look at the libraries we have in our county governments, they are despicable and they look pathetic. How I wish we can figure out how to pay our ECD teachers, because that's the foundation under which these teachers are building the future children, the future leaders of tomorrow, like Boni Halwale, who will become doctors and lawyers, like my Secretary General, Honorable Sifuna. And my sister, Madam, tell who? And Mr. Speaker, I would want the ECD teachers to also produce children who are going to be as wonderful as Madam Gloria Oluroba and all the ladies I see in this House fighting for the change and development of our country. Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, I say I give credit to this committee, and I hope that we will move in next year. We increase the amount, so long as the governors promise that they are going to be responsible, they are not going to misuse our money, and they are going to be people who will be seen as the future custodians of our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karen Nyamu.
Mr. Speaker, I want to support the Division of Revenue Bill. And governors, what's wrong with my speaker, Mr. Speaker?
You're on, Senator Karen. You may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I want to support this bill, and I want to urge the counties and the county government to be contented with the 391.1 billion that we are allocating to them, which translates to about 25% of the money that the government collects. Mr. Speaker, the government is already grappling with financial constraints due to lack of an access of finance in both local and the international markets. The President has been in the forefront, Mr. Speaker, urging us all to live within our means. Let us avoid over-ambitious budgets which lead to corruption and stalled projects, Mr. Speaker. A report by the Controller of Budget indicates that most counties are actually spending 75% of money allocated to them to recurring expenditure, that is mainly salaries, against the regulations of the finance management provisions that indicate it should be at least 35% of that money that goes to salaries, Mr. Speaker. There is also the question of accountabilities. A lot of governors are not able to account to the money that they already comes to them. County governments should also seek to settle all eligible pending bills and avoid the stalling of projects, Mr. Speaker. And with those few remarks, I support.
Senator Oburu Oginga.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also want to add my voice to this bill. And Mr. Speaker, I want to support the report by our Finance and Budget Committee recommending an increment over and above the one by the Commission for Revenue Allocation. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm doing this because I'm very happy with the way the Senate is this time handling this particular issue, this particular bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, last year, when we discussed this issue, we were divided, and we were arguing whether to increase or not to increase, or whether to increase to the level recommended by the CRA or to leave it at the level which was passed by the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, sir, today we are having a very, very substantial increase recommended by our own Finance and Budget Committee, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, when you increase the allocation from 385 billion to 391, that increase of 6 billion, Mr. Speaker, does not even meet the inflation. Because, Mr. Speaker, when you talk of increment, there is increment in nominal terms, and there is increment in real terms. And when you talk of increment in real terms, first of all, you take into consideration the inflation. Then you knock out the inflation and you consider whether you have actually increased the budget. And Mr. Speaker, when you don't take that into consideration and you just talk about the nominal increment, you are actually missing the point, because you are giving them less than what it is, if it is less than the increment in terms of the inflation. So, Mr. Speaker, this increment, as recommended by our Finance and Budget Committee, will go a long way in meeting some of the requirements, some of the needs of the counties. Mr. Speaker, having spoken about the need to increase the allocation to the counties, I also want to say that our counties need to be tightly controlled. We need to have control measures to make sure that they don't pocket monies which are meant to offer services to our people. Mr. Chairman, in Nigeria, Mr. Speaker, in Nigeria, when devolution was introduced, more than 50% of the governors went to jail because they did not know how to run a devolved system. They thought it was devolving corruption. They thought it was devolving eating of money. And Mr. Speaker, sir, after tight measures were introduced, devolution is now functioning very well. In our country, we have not managed. We hear governors are being interrogated here and there, but none of them ever goes where they should be, some of them who steal money from the public, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is also the issue of pending bills. These pending bills is killing businesses. Pending bills, Mr. Speaker, is making the life very difficult for people who are not paid. And instead of reducing the pending bills, I have seen the list of pending bills, Mr. Speaker, sir. There are counties who are actually increasing the pending bills. Their pending bills are going up instead of reducing, Mr. Speaker. This is very serious because the counties are supposed to take into consideration the people to whom they are offering services. And if they are still adding on to what is already a big problem, Mr. Speaker, this is serious and the Senate needs to take cognition of this and take some measures to deal with such counties who are, instead of reducing, they are actually increasing the pending bills. Mr. Speaker, sir, I do not want to say much more on this issue, only to say that the statutory deductions, when counties make statutory deductions from their employees, and they also make such as NSSF, such as National Hospital Insurance Fund, such as the pay as you earn, they retain these revenues and then they use them. They convert them into their own use, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very serious matter because there are people who are supposed to earn pensions. They cannot get their pensions because there are no remittances. People want to access hospitals. They cannot access hospitals because the counties have not remitted money to pay for the hospital insurance, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is an issue which also needs serious attention because the counties are not supposed to use monies which they have deducted from their employees. This is not part of their money, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is the own source revenue. Mr. Speaker, the own source revenue is an area where counties can get additional money to supplement the equitable share from the national government, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, but some counties leave a lot of loopholes, and they don't even want to go modern. They don't want to go modern by using electronic means of collecting money, which is more efficient in collection and
Senator, your time is up. He's not requested for more time, or you definitely would have given him additional time. Senator Lomenen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand to support this bill from the Finance Committee. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Senate is not a problem. We always allocate funds to the counties, but the problem is the counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is problem in the counties because, one, the value of money. Mr. Speaker, sir, I was formerly a member of the National Assembly, and I was supervising CDF. We found building a class in CDF, Mr. Speaker, was worthy 2 million. But when you find the cost of a class in the county, you will find it is almost 4 million. or 5 million. So you wonder, Mr. Speaker, this fund that comes from the CDF, it is the same money that comes from this government. So the value of money, Mr. Speaker, funds are misused. Second, Mr. Speaker, sir, the other thing that we are really worried, if you find in the counties, and I think the chairman for PIC and PAC is here, you will find, Mr. Speaker, sir, most of the projects are white elephants. And they are this is big projects which is worthy millions. They are not completed. I even up to now, if we get into these areas, and I think those members of Senate who went for Senate Mashinani, they saw with their naked eyes, they observed how these projects are still not complete. Because of these projects that are not complete, and the community needs these projects. For example, if an health center or an hospital is not complete, when will these people from this location or from this from the sub-county will use these services? When will they? When will be these services offered? So, Mr. Speaker, sir, when funds are allocated to the county, when they reach the county, Mr. Speaker, sir, the priorities are diverted. The governor and the executives and the people who work together, they decide to divert the funds to projects that they are so comfortable to them. And then the community is left wondering, in search for water, in search for food, in search for health services, in search for school fees. They are just left wondering, Mr. Speaker. So one thing that we are really saying, we will not try to do our oversight. But something, Mr. Speaker, that I want to say, that it's like senators who do oversight, when they try to exercise their responsibility, which is constitutional, to the county. The county feel hurt that why should the senators oversight? This is our constitutional role, and we will ensure any public fund that is given to the county, we will oversight until the end of until the end of our age, because it is our responsibility, Mr. Speaker, sir. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, sir, one thing that we are also realized, the issue of pending bills. Pending bills is becoming a problem. Before pending bills are being paid, there are things that are considered, politics comes in. The current governor will say, no, he is not paying those paying bills because he doesn't know what happened, the procurement process, whatever. But yet, during the handing over, he received all these pending bills, he received the handing over report. Before, he could have denied and say, let the audit first done to these audit pending bills or the pending incomplete projects before he pays. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, so that now pending bills amount of pending bills are so much. So when we allocate these funds even to the county, you find if the good political will be there, all these funds will be paid to the pending bills, and there will be inadequacy of public services to the community. So, but what will we do, Mr. Speaker, sir? We have to pay because these contractors who offer their services to the county, they have children, they have families, they have needs, they have to be paid. There is no excuse. We have to pay before we continue because they live in this county and they are very ready to offer their services. because they are Kenyans and they deserve to be paid. Mr. Speaker, that the rest of, the other thing that we are all observed, that the right priorities should be done. If it is water, let the community get the, water. If the issue of the health center or hospital, it is not in order, Mr. Speaker, sir, for a county like maybe Marsabit or a county like Turkana to move 150 kilometers just because of referral cases, just because there is lack of drugs or health services in the specific hospital. And yet, we allocated the same funds with these other counties that you are referring for referral. Mr. Speaker, sir, we should be self-contained with these funds that we have been given. We have to make these funds, these funds should meet the right priorities from the citizen. Because sometimes, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have to carry needs assessment so that you know the problems the community are facing. They will talk, they know better than you. But if the
Senator Lomen, your time is up. Senator Eddie Okech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to share a few thoughts with regards to this particular bill that is necessitated with the conversations that we are invited to, actually in both Article 203 of the Constitution and 204 of the Constitution, because I know that this bill has actually given about 7.8 billion shillings for equalization fund, which is going to go to counties as well. But Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to speak to two things because of the pressure of time that I'm going to be under. If I had the 20 minutes, I could have talked about other adventurous things, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just to jog our minds, this particular bill projects that we will have a revenue allocation for the year 2024-2025 estimated at 2.9 billion. 2.9 trillion. And Mr. Speaker, out of this 2.9 trillion, this bill has proposed, again, based on what the Treasury had brought, Treasury had proposed that the national government share of this 2.9 trillion should be 2.5 trillion. And if you do the math, Mr. Speaker, that will represent 86.47% of the total revenue that we are projecting. And then the Treasury did propose that the county government should get 391 billion. And Mr. Speaker, if you do the math, the share of that would be 13.3% of that total revenue that we project, Mr. Speaker. Of course, the dictates of Article 203, Mr. Speaker, requires that in this kind of division, we should be able to allocate at least 15% of the last audited financial reports, Mr. Speaker. Now, the last audited financials in the country, Mr. Speaker, were the financials of 2020, 2021, Mr. Speaker. So that means that if we were to go with what the government is, or rather the National Treasury was proposing, Mr. Speaker, then the equitable share will be about 24% of that last audited financials, Mr. Speaker. And I think that when you do that math, then it looks very, very lucrative, as if you have given counties so much money. But in the thickness of things, Mr. Speaker, that would only mean that the increase to the county governments, based on what we gave them last year, would only be 1.5%, Mr. Speaker. And I'm glad that this committee, after doing some maths and looking at a number of things, Mr. Speaker, the Finance Committee did propose 415.9 billion as the equitable share that we should be able to give to counties, Mr. Speaker. And I think that this is something that the House should rally behind, as well as the National Assembly. I mean, because, Mr. Speaker, the kind of pressures that the counties are facing today, Mr. Speaker, are so many. And there has to be, the word equitable share must be equitable, both in meaning and in deed. Because, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the growth factors of our revenue, Mr. Speaker, that do affect us nationally, Mr. Speaker, there are a number of things that we must start fighting for, Mr. Speaker. Number one thing that we do care about as a committee, and I do care about personally, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that inflation and the cost of goods and services, Mr. Speaker, don't get to be considered when you only use either previous year's baseline or when you only use the previously audited finances, Mr. Speaker. Then it leaves the national government benefiting from the fact that their revenue growth does cater for their budget's inflationary issues, as well as the under Article 203, which I think that this House, because we have got NADCO conversations that are going on, we must actually press to be able to adjust on that particular aspect, so that when we're doing revenue allocation, Mr. Speaker, we can be able to look at the adjustment factors in terms of those growth factors, including things like high cost of living, cost of goods and services, as well as inflation issues that we have in the country at any given point, Mr. Speaker. The second and the last thing I want to talk about, Mr. Speaker, is that we are passing the financial year 2024-2025 when the last audited finances were done by the National Assembly in 2020-2021. Mr. Speaker, it's imperative that we must take an opportunity either to amend the Constitution or adjust the existing laws that can be able to compel the National Assembly to be able to work within the speed so that we always have the audited finances to be the nearest possible to financial year that we are passing, Mr. Speaker. So for instance, right now, Mr. Speaker, if we base the sharing of this revenue on 2020-2021 and we're passing 2024-2025, Mr. Speaker, is completely eroding to county governments. It is not equitable. It cannot be able to help them match the needs of what they are working on, Mr. Speaker. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, we must also cushion our governors from making commitments that are on national functions, Mr. Speaker. And sometimes even making those commitments when end that, it clouds back on them. For instance, Mr. Speaker, we have seen these things like parks that are being built in counties. We have seen things like health promoters that we see the sharing between the national government and the counties. And then our governors end up committing blindly to this.
Senator Eddie, your time is up. Senator Mofaya Gatayamwenda.
Honorable Speaker, may I take this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to support this very important bill, considering the fact that our core business as Senate is to make sure that we have passed the relevant bills, make sure that counties get money. Because Article 96, Honorable Speaker, dictates that the Senate represents the counties and serves to protect the interests of the counties and their governments. 2, the Senate participates in the lawmaking function of the Parliament by considering, debating, and approving bills concerning counties as provided in Article 109 to 113. At the same time, Honorable Speaker, the Senate participates in the oversight of state officers by considering and determining any reallocation to remove or whatever, so many other things, Honorable Speaker. By so saying, Honorable Speaker, I'm happy by what the Committee on the Finance has just done, because we have increased the money that is supposed to go to counties. But, Honorable Speaker, it is worth noting, Honorable Speaker, that we have witnessed a lot of rampant corruption in counties, because we have devolved corruption, we have devolved nepotism, we have devolved a lot of things that are not supposed to be done. And I think it's the high time that, Honorable Speaker, as a House, we are supposed to pronounce ourselves. And I admire what Senator for Garissa just stated, that this House should bestow itself with that responsibility of making sure that we try to rate our governors and their performance. We don't want to have some elements of infrastructure or any other organ for that matter trying to engage the performance of governors. It is this House which is charged with that responsibility of making sure that we rank our governors as per performance and those who are putting public money prudently. So it is that time, Honorable Speaker, that once we devolve the money, we sometimes become audacious, because money has been squandered, money has been eaten, people have rooted a lot of money all the way, and maybe after 2-3 years, that report finds its way to this House. It is the time, Honorable Speaker, that we are supposed to make sure that we are hands-on to make sure that whatever we devolve to our counties, to our governors, is used prudently for the interest of those people whose that money is supposed to serve. Honorable Speaker, I have seen quite a number of us, even in the previous regime. People come here and say, oh, the governors are doing this and that, but once you become a governor, from maybe Senate, from the National Assembly, the trend just is the same. I think it's that time we must stop this hypocrisy and make sure that we have to manage what we normally say. Because maybe in the next 2-3 years, some of us here will be governors down in the relevant counties. We expect a shift from the norm, that where people are making sure that they are beating people's money, where services are not rendered, and it's the time, Honorable Speaker, that we must practice what we preach. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Senator Okongo Mogeni.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support the bill that is before us. That's the Division of Revenue Bill 2024. Mr. Speaker, first, we cannot, as senators, say that we are happy with the allocation of 391 billion. Certainly, our counties deserve to get more resources. The national government continues to remain with a huge chunk of revenue that we collect nationally. So we must continue, Mr. Speaker, agitating for county governments to get more resources. But then the resources will, as we always say here, they will never be impactful, Mr. Speaker, unless they are used well and for the benefit of the people that we represent, Mr. Speaker. I don't know the experience from other counties, but 12 years into devolution, my governor has not tarmacked even 1 kilometer of a road in the county of Nyamira. You can imagine, 1 kilometer of a road. Every money that is sent to Nyamira, all that the governor can do is to use Maram. That's the only mark that we have for him. And Senator Gloria knows that. Senator Methu is saying, I'm lucky. I don't think so. We can use this money better, Mr. Speaker, because, you know, tarmacking 1 kilometer is low density. Can take up to 40 million. So if you have an allocation of 400 million, in one financial year, you can do up to 10 kilometers. And that can transform counties. If you take a county like Nyamira, which is not huge in terms of acreage, you can do a lot, Mr. Speaker. But I'm also, so our governors really need to wake up so that they can join the efforts by the government to progressively transform our counties. Mr. Speaker, I'm one of those lucky senators that fiscal capacity and fiscal efficiency is not one of the perimeters we use to share revenue. Because if we invoked that parameter, I will immediately lose money. Because my county, my county of Nyamira, our accounts have moved from being qualified to adverse. Meaning I can see there is a proposal that fiscal capacity and efficiency of county governments be introduced as one of parameters. We want to really advise our governors to spend our money more efficiently, have more accountability, and reduce wastage in our counties. And also know that money that is sent to counties is not meant to reward relatives or friends. You know, you can imagine, I saw last week, His Excellency the President was hosting a conference on, the ballooning wage bill. But at the same time, in the county of Nyamira, we were shooting up our wage bill to wallop 71% of the allocation that is given to the county government of Nyamira. In just one financial year, we started by employing 300, and then we added another 200, so that's 500. And we are not picking children of the poor, the needy. It's just packing the county with cronies, relatives, which is very, very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. So I think there is something that we need to do as senators. Mr. Speaker, I was reading the Constitution, and I saw Article 2542 says that us as a Senate, we have powers to summon an independent office holder or any commission to come and give us a report as a House. And I think it's high time that we called EACC, the 5 commissioners and the CEO, to come here and appear before the Committee of the Whole. Then they tell us what are they doing to deal with corruption in our counties, Mr. Speaker. Me and you cannot move to our respective counties and arrest our governors. The only people who have that power is EACC, DCI, and the ODPP, And this idea of every day we are speaking on this floor, we are saying governors are corrupt, but you see nothing. I heard Senator Oburu give an example of Nigeria, that when they introduced, theirs is also a system of a devolved system of government, though they have states. He says many governors were locked up because of stealing public resources. But 12 years into devolution in this beautiful country called Kenya, not even one person has gone to jail. Whereas the national government is saying, let us reduce wage bill. Some counties like Nyamira, we have ballooned our wage bill to take 71% of the resources that we send to our counties. Really, that is not the way to transform our country. Such a governor wants us to remain the way we are. The way Mo used to say, mukae hivyo hivyo. We don't want to kaa hivyo hivyo. We want our country to be transformed. We want our country to change. We want to drive to our homes through tarmac roads, not maram roads. Mr. Speaker, 60 years after independence, we need better quality of life for our people, Mr. Speaker. The vision of the government is to reduce the maram roads in our country. We will never achieve that unless the county government and the national government share the same vision. Finally, I hope that the National Assembly will fast track the auditing and approval of our accounts so that we move closer to dealing with audited accounts of the previous financial year. I think we are now dealing with the 2019-2020. That's a very skewed way of sharing revenue, Mr. Speaker. So we call upon our brothers to also fast track the approval of the audited accounts so that we can at least move closer in terms of the accounts that we use as a basis of sharing money. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Senator Mohammed Abdallah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, this House is in charge of devolution. And we have seen that devolution is working. And unless we protect it jealously, we will make it work even better, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we know that there are some governors who are misappropriating funds, but that should not be a reason for us to say that we are going to punish all the governors because of one or two mistakes of individual governors. This House, we are supposed to do oversight on the county government. And that is the role which we are supposed to play. And by doing oversight, we are supposed to establish the loopholes, the issues, the challenges, and problems which are faced which are facing the county assemblies. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the budget, from the time our constitution was inaugurated, you will realize the increase of the national government budget is increasing by trillions. But when you look at the budget of the counties, it is only increasing by few billions. So this is one area whereby we need to support and make sure that we give enough funds to our counties for the counties to grow and develop. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the problems we are facing now, the challenges which are facing devolution functions, I want to give an example of the health and agriculture. Those two functions are devolved functions, and now they are faced with a lot of serious problems, Mr. Speaker. And these are problems which are created by the national government for lack of trying to work together with the national government to improve and sort the problems and challenges faced by the county government. Mr. Speaker, when we deny funds to the county governments, we are trying to kill the devolution. There are issues whereby sometimes there are a lot of delays in the release of funds. These are really causing a lot of confusions and trying to make the devolution not work. So, Mr. Speaker, by increasing funds to the county governments, we are building the counties, we are building devolution, and we want to see that the county government and the national government are working hand in hand to sort the existing issues which are facing the counties so that we see the devolution working properly and to see that the results of devolution are felt in the grassroots level. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, there being no other member who is interested in contributing to this bill, I call upon the mover to reply. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to appreciate our colleagues who have taken time to speak to this very important motion. The annual division of revenue bill is perhaps the single most important legislation in terms of fulfillment to our core mandate and reason for existence as an institution. And therefore, to do this annual ritual, so to speak, Mr. Speaker, I must appreciate our colleagues who have shared their thoughts and views, but most importantly, all in one concerted effort agreed to the need to properly fund our counties, notwithstanding the many cases of misuse of resources at the county level, Mr. Speaker, and have risen above, Mr. Speaker, the petty, sometimes very partisan politics that arises during division of revenue, Mr. Speaker, and disagree on things which we need not disagree on. Mr. Speaker, this House has gone through, we have gone full circle. Sometimes, and I said this last year, that I see colleagues who want to reduce this debate sometimes to be about how did you vote
in last year alone. I would have them check the records and appreciate that at one time, the Senate has actually stood firm and being left as alone by standard, that everybody deserted us, from the national government, Mr. Speaker, to the members of the county assembly, and finally, 4 months into the financial year, the governor has also called a press conference and said, Senate should stop dilly-dallying, pass the damn thing as it is. Therefore, the history of this House and, Mr. Speaker, our fight for better resources to the counties is replete with acts of great sacrifice by senators. Mr. Speaker, you know for a fact that the biggest single-year leap that we've ever had as a House is from 316 to 370. And many people know what happened that particular financial year before we achieved that great milestone, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I want to agree with colleagues that we need to progress this bill, conclude on it, resource our counties properly so that as they begin the financial year, we are moving together in one accord. Final point, Mr. Speaker, I had one colleague mention of the need for us to engage perhaps more deeply with the institutions of oversight. Senate is only one, but there are other organs of oversight that can help us tame wanton corruption in our counties, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps it is time to consider a conference and that will have an exit, Mr. Speaker. The annual legislative summit was supposed to achieve that, but unfortunately, it has been reduced sometimes to a shouting match. Remember from the very first ones where we went, and it was just all about car grant and other mundane things, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps we as an institution have had EACC being mentioned, the Office of the Auditor General, the Office of the Controller of Budget, and the Office of the Senate. Mr. Speaker, between those four institutions, we can come up with sound resolutions that will ensure that we tame the want-away corruption in our counties, Mr. Speaker. And I don't think it is beyond our budget and organization skills for us to retreat. And perhaps that is food for thought for your office as a Speaker and the leadership of this House, that later on, when we have the next monthly recess, to perhaps consider a day or two where we can retreat and raise this issue. There is nothing new that you're doing as a senator in raising these issues on the floor of the House. You know, there's no difference, Senator Mogeni, between you and the villager in Keumbu at a funeral who's crying that their resources are being pilfered. You're also in the Senate doing the same. They expect us to do better than that. And therefore, I think we need to go beyond the obvious bickering, Mr. Speaker, that we have become so accustomed to, and come up with sound policies, Mr. Speaker, between those four institutions of oversight to ensure that devolution succeeds. With those very merit remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply.
Honorable members, we will go to division on this particular bill, and I will direct the clerk to ring the quorum bell for 5 minutes.
Well, the division of the revenue bill 2024 is the business that was on the floor of the House, or that is currently on the floor of the Senate chambers. And the debate on this bill resumed this afternoon, and there was limitation of debate for the members, each of the member being allocated 7.5 minutes to be able to give their opinion and views on the proposals of this bill. Remember, this is the bill that is from the National Assembly and co-sponsored by the leader of the majority party at the Senate. And some of the contents of the bill is on the allocation that will be going to the counties, with the senators fronting for 415 billion Kenya shillings to be allocated to the counties. This is the revenue raised nationally, equitable sharing of the revenues raised nationally between the national and the county governments for the 2024-2025. The National Assembly had proposed that the counties receive 391 billion, and from what we saw from the members of the Senate is that the counties need enough money to be able to undertake the functions that have been moved to the counties, including the disaster management and emergencies response, such as the floods that has been that actually is being witnessed at the moment. There were also issues by the members on the accountability of the accounting officers on the money that is being sent to the counties, and a number of issues. But just remember, one thing is that this is part of the budget processes that is being done by the Parliament, and the limitation of the debate was for the members of the Senate to be able to conclude on this bill, the debate on this bill. Remember, it's a bill at its second reading stage, where debate normally takes place for the members to be able to give in or add on their views on the proposals of the debate. So what now is happening is that it's a division bill. The members will be coming back to vote on whether the bill to be read for the second.
Honorable members, order, honorable members. Senator Kajwang, order, honorable members. Senator, Chairman, Senator Roba. Senator Roba. Order, members. Senator Eddy, take your seats. Senator Eddy, take your seat. Honorable members, I want you to assume your seats so that we ascertain the numbers for purposes of voting. Members, I'm informed you've got the requisite numbers. We are going to, Sergeant at Arms, could you please draw the bar and close the door? You may also proceed, Sergeant at Arms, to withdraw the cards from delegate units which are not attended. Honorable members, this will be an electronic vote. Honorable senators, order, members. Honorable senators, I now put the question that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bills number 14 of 2024, be now read a second time. Members, you may start voting. Order, order, honorable members. We are yet to announce the results of this vote. Honorable members, we now have the results of the vote. Yes, 25, nays 0, abstentions 0. The ayes have it. Sergeant at Arms, you may now draw.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the equitable division of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments in the 2024-2025 financial year and for connected purposes.
Now, Sergeant at Arms, you may open the door and draw the bar. Honorable members, earlier on, I had rearranged the order paper to facilitate the voting, the debate and conclusion and voting on the bill, which have just concluded. And we will go back to the order paper as had earlier on. And therefore, I will allow statements to continue. And this is, honorable members, statements pursuant to Standing Order 56(1)B of the standing orders of this House. It's here. Sure. The chairperson, Standing Committee on Roads, Senator Karungu Thangwa. Senator Gloria, Senator Cherargei, Senator Eddy, resume your seats to allow Senator, the chairperson of Roads, to read his statement. Proceed, Senator Karungu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 56(1)B to make a statement on the activities of the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing for the period commencing 1st January 2024 to 31st March 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing is established under Standing Order 228.3 of the Senate Standing Orders and is mandated to consider all matters relating to transport, roads, public works, housing, construction, and maintenance of roads, rails, and buildings, seaports, and communication. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the period under consideration, the committee held 16 sittings and conducted the following business. A, bills. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the period under review, the committee considered the following bills. The committee considered the Public Transport Motorcycle Regulation Bill 2023, that is Senate Bills number 38 of 2023, that is sponsored by Senator Dr. Boni Kalwale, MP, and will consider the committee stage amendments and table its report on the bill in the next report period. The committee considered the National Construction Authority Amendment Bill, that is National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2022. The committee will consider and adopt the report on the bill for tabling in the next reporting period. The committee, Mr. Speaker, also considered the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023, and tabled its report on the bill on 7th March 2024. Legislative proposals. The committee considered the legislative proposal by Senator Fatuma Dulo, CBS MP, on the Street Naming and Property Addressing System Bill 2023 and recommended its publication with proposed amendments. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee is considering the legislative proposal by Senator Christo Asige, MP, on Transport Laws Universal Design Amendment Bill 2024 and is expected to conclude its consideration in the next reporting period. Petitions. Mr. Speaker, sir, 2 petitions are pending before the committee as follows. One petition, which was presented to the Senate on 18th October 2022 by Senator Moses Kajwang, MP, and was thereafter committed to the committee. The committee met with the petitioners, the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Road and Transport, and Kenya Ports Authority. The committee is scheduled to undertake a visit to Mfangano Island and thereafter draft the report for submission in the House. Petition 2, Mr. Speaker, is a petition concerning the title deeds for properties bought at Jamii Bora Estate, Kisaju, Kajiado County. The petition was committed to the committee on 14th March 2023. The petitioners bought houses and shops on off-plan housing scheme from Jamii Bora Charitable Trust, but were never issued with title deeds to those houses built in Jamii Bora Estate since the year 2008 to date. The petitioner therefore sought the intervention of the Senate to have them issued with title deeds for their properties. The committee met and received submission from the petitioners, Kajiado County Government, Business Registration Services, State Department for Lands and Physical Planning, and Kingdom Bank. The committee is to hold a conclusive meeting with all stakeholders and table a report in the next reporting period. Statements. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the period under review, 16 statements were referred to the committee for consideration. 1. Status of the Lodwar Court building in Turkana by Senator James Lomenen, MP. And 2. Barabara zinazomilikiwa na mamlaka ya kura katika kaunti ya Mombasa iliyoletwa na Senator Mohamed Faki, MP. The following 3 statements were considered but not concluded because the committee sought supplementary information. 1. Repair of rails vandalized during the public demonstration at the Mlolongo Pay Point on the Nairobi Expressway. It was requested by Senator Enoch Wambua, MP. Kuzorota kwa miundombinu na huduma katika jengo la Bima Towers katika kaunti ya Mombasa, aliyeuliza ni Senator Mohamed Faki, MP. And 3, status of completion of Bunge Tower by Senator Mohamed Chute, MP. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee adopted a methodology for consideration of statements where it invites senators who request for statements refer to the committee before seeking a response from the relevant government agencies. This is meant to reduce the number of supplementary issues that arise during consideration of responses to the statements. Mr. Speaker, sir, 15 statements referred to the committee are at different stages of consideration as indicated in the attached annex. And Mr. Speaker, it's good to note the reason why we adopted this methodology is because we feel the statements are over-edited before they appear or before they are read in this House. So we invite the senators before that so that they can give us the original statements before we send to the relevant departments. Mr. Speaker, sir, inquiries. The committee is undertaking an inquiry into the Urban Regeneration and Renewal Program of the County Government of Nairobi, which intends to demolish 13 estates, majority of which are in Nairobi County, and redevelop the estates under the Affordable Housing Program. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee is concerned with the manner in which the County Government of Nairobi is undertaking the program without carrying out meaningful public participation by the residents of the targeted estates and the issuance of threats to the officials of the State's Residents Association who have raised issues with the manner in which the program is being carried out. The committee met with the Governor of Nairobi County and received submission on the Urban Regeneration and Renewal Program. The committee and the County Government of Nairobi agreed that the project should not commence until adequate and meaningful public participation with the residents of the affected estates is undertaken and a memorandum of understanding signed. Messages. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee received a message for consideration jointly with the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources. The message was from the County Assembly of Nyandarua regarding a resolution by the County Assembly to petition the Senate to consult with and initiate approval of the National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA, the Kenya National Highway Authority, KENHA, the Kenya Forest Service, KFS, and the Kenya Wildlife Service, KWS, in the Ihithe Aberdare Forest Kauroko Ndonyonjeru Road construction and tamaking project. The Joint Committee awaits the outcome of the report on comments on the Environmental Impact Assessment, EIA, and Environmental Social Impact Assessment, ESIA, study on the proposed construction on the road. But it's also good to report that the road is set to start construction, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, challenges. The committee experienced the following challenges. 1, delayed response by county governments. The committee experienced cases of delayed response to information sought from county governments. This arises from unclear responsibilities in the county governments on who is to act on issues sought by the committee. County government should be encouraged to establish legislative desks to handle issues emanating from Parliament and county assemblies. And it's also good to note, Mr. Speaker, that the committee has fined governors who have not been able to attend to the committee, Mr. Speaker. And finally, the second challenge, Mr. Speaker, is non-attendance of meetings for consideration of responses to statements by senators who requested the statements, Mr. Speaker. This delays conclusion of the statements. It's also good to note, Mr. Speaker, the next time I'm coming here to give a report like this one, I'll be able to mention the names of those senators who request for statements, but they do not appear to either defend or discuss their statements within the committee, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, the chairman of the Standing Committee on Roads, Transport and Housing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Karungu Thangwa. I call upon the chairperson, CPAC, to make his statement as well.
You're still here. Mr. Speaker, sir, Pursuant to Standing Order 56-1B, I rise to make a statement on the activities of the County Public Accounts Committee for the period commencing 13th February 2024 to 19th of April 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the period under review, the committee held a total of 14 meetings in which interrogated reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of 7 county executives and 8 county assemblies. Mr. Speaker, even though the reporting period is from the 13th of February, I must note that with the leave of the Speaker, the committee retreated between the 6th and 11th of February, just a few days before commencement of the session, to write reports. And Mr. Speaker, on the order paper, members will be pleased to see we have submitted reports for 10 county assemblies and reports on 15 county executives. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the period, the committee has noted with concern the rising trend of witnesses failing to appear before the committee without justifiable reasons, amounting to contempt of Parliament. The committee has flagged the governors of Isiolo and Nairobi county executives and has subsequently summoned them to appear before the committee in April and May, respectively. And Mr. Speaker, again, this report was approved last week, but I'm pleased to note that the governor of Isiolo was compelled to appear before the committee yesterday, and the committee also resolved to impose the maximum fine available under the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act to purge the contempt of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, if contempt of Senate committees is not checked, other governors are likely to follow suit if it does not invite any serious consequences. The Senate should thus explore avenues through amendments of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act to provide for stricter penalties, fines, imprisonment, or other punitive measures. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, we have requested the Legal Directorate to do a paper on the concept of contempt of Parliament and also to share with the committee what other jurisdictions do to ensure enforcement of the directives of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, the committee undertook a county visit to Isiolo County in March for inspection of projects and interrogation of the reports of the Auditor General for the financial years 2019-2020 and 2020-2021. However, the governor failed to appear before the committee, and as I said earlier, we issued summons, and the governor appeared yesterday to explain himself. During project inspection, the committee observed that some of the projects, including the county headquarters, Isiolo Stadium, Isiolo Market, Mwangaza Dispensary, and the Isiolo Referral Hospital mortuary had either stalled or had taken longer than the planned period to complete, and some of the contractors were not on site. The committee directed the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to take keen interest on the implementation and projects, and further, we requested the Control of Budget to scrutinize the requisitions relating to the highlighted projects. Mr. Speaker, I would also emphasize and note that when we were in Isiolo, we went to the mortuary, the coolers were not working, and in as much as the county government explained that they were working before our visit, they were not able to demonstrate why they were not working during our visit. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee continues to note with concern the unhealthy size and growth of wage bill in many of the counties, beyond the recommended 35% threshold, and the processing of employee emoluments outside the integrated personnel and payroll database, what we call the IPPD. Payment outside the IPPD poses significant weaknesses for counties, since manual processes are often less transparent and more prone to corruption. Individuals responsible for payroll may manipulate records, create ghost employees, or inflate salaries to siphon county funds. Manual processing of salaries results in loss of audit trails and accountability mechanisms integral in automated information systems, since it is difficult to verify transactions or to hold individuals accountable for discrepancies in salary payments. This lack of accountability opens the door to fraud and misconduct. This unethical behavior undermines the integrity of the payroll systems and has resulted in massive financial losses in counties. Mr. Speaker, the committee has since invited the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management, the Council of Governors, and the County Assembly Forum to deliberate on this issue. Again, for emphasis, Mr. Speaker, the National Wage Bill Conference that was held about 2 weeks ago, representatives of the legislature were left out, and yet some of the interventions required to tame the unhealthy wage bill could rise from budgetary allocations appropriations by Parliament, or statutory or regulatory reforms. And I hope that that can improve in future. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the interrogation of the Auditor General's reports for various county entities, the committee also noted with concern the persistent accruing pending bills, including non-remittance of statutory deductions to the relevant state agencies. The committee has directed the entities to take sustainable measures to address this matter and further directed the Office of the Auditor General and the Control of Budget to closely monitor adherence to this directive. And Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to note also that Senator Ledama Olekina has brought a motion to this House on the subject of pending bills. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the interrogation of the various county entities, the committee noted that most entities failed to disclose their contingent liabilities in their financial statements. Some of the contingent liabilities may arise from litigation in progress, guarantees, indemnities, warrants, and public-private partnerships. County governments, whereas they do not need to recognize a contingent liability in their statement of receipts and payments, they need to disclose details of any contingencies in notes to the financial statements unless the possibility of an outflow of resources embodying economic benefits or service potential is remote. Mr. Speaker, some of the counties with the highest contingent liabilities include Nairobi City County, with a contingent liability close to 21.7 billion, Kiambu County, 497 million, and Meru County with 601 million. Other counties did not disclose their contingent liabilities, but there was evidence that there was litigation in progress, which if the matters would go against the county governments, some of the county governments would be technically insolvent. And I think we saw that with Uasin Gishu, where the issues that are in court, if they were to go against the county government in totality, then the county government would have to pay much more than the revenues they earn locally and the revenues from equitable share. And so, Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that we have insisted needs to be disclosed. On issues to deal with presentation, accuracy, and completeness of financial statements, the committee has observed that accountants in various entities have often prepared financial statements which do not comply with the public sector accounting standards. This amounts to gross negligence in their conduct or professional duties and constitutes professional misconduct pursuant to Section 8A and 30 of the Accountants Act, Cap 531. Financial statements prepared under the International Public Sector Accounting Standards and prescribed by the Public Sector Accounting Standard Boards are critical in decision-making processes in counties as well as accountability. The committee has planned engagements with the professional bodies, the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, the Institute of Human Resource Management, and the Kenya Institute of Supplies Management. And Mr. Speaker, these are regulated professions, regulated through acts of parliament. We want to meet them in a bid to come up with a proper framework of collaboration so that professionals perform their duties with the level and care of skill expected in their field, and also recommend disciplinary process for their members who fail to adhere to the standards. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to note that so far, as the chair of the committee, I had an engagement with the Office of the Auditor General during their annual planning retreat in Mombasa over the weekend, where we shared our concerns on professional responsibility. And the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya has since responded, even though through a press statement, to some of the issues that have emerged from the Senate deliberation. Mr. Speaker, it is comfort that professional bodies are taking note of what is happening in the Senate. Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General has also cited in its reports that some county entities seem to be in serious or persistent material breach of their financial management principles. The committee has noted that some entities, for example, Nairobi, Kisumu, Baringo, and Tana River counties have had adverse opinion for more than 3 consecutive years. As a result, the committee is considering invoking the provisions of Article 2253 and Section 96(1) of the Public Finance Management Act on stoppage of funds. Stoppage of funds is a serious measure aimed at addressing governance and financial integrity issues and is part of a broader framework of accountability and oversight to ensure responsible use of public funds and delivery of services to citizens. Mr. Speaker, on the conversation around stoppage of funds, allow me just to emphasize what one of my committee members, Senator Okia Omtata, had raised, that if you stop the flow of funds to counties because of an errant governor, then you are punishing the masses. So we must find ways of punishing those persons who are errant, and the Article 2253 is a very lengthy process, but we can find a roundabout way of perhaps stopping the privileges and benefits that go to the ruling classes in counties, rather than stopping the flow of funds for medicine and other critical infrastructure to counties. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank the members of the committee and the dedicated secretariat that usually sits for long hours to ensure we reduce the backlog of audit reports. The committee will continue to use various strategies, including subcommittees and merger of financial years, to shift to a more proactive mandate and to ensure the Senate is current in its interventions. And Mr. Speaker, I would wish to report to the House that we are currently dealing with the next round of appearances will go up to the financial year 2022. It's nothing to be proud of, but considering the backlog that we have had in the past, Mr. Speaker, we pray that by the end of this session, we will be able to bring to the House reports up to the financial year 2023. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Senator Kajwang. The chairperson, County Public Investments and Special Funds Committee, Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the County Public Investment and Special Funds Committee, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 56(1)B to make a statement on the activities of the committee for the period commencing 1st January to 15th April 2024. Honorable Speaker, during the period under review, the committee had a total of 25 meetings within and outside the presence of Parliament to consider matters within its mandate. The meetings that we did included: 1, the regular meetings to consider the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of special funds in counties for the financial years 2019-2020, 2020-2021, and 2021-2022. Mr. Speaker, this was a very important engagement because this Senate, since it was established, it had not considered the audited reports for funds. And this was noted as one area where we have challenges with the governance and issues to do with accountability. Number 2, multi-stakeholder engagement forum, which was held in Mombasa County to address numerous cross-cutting issues in the water sector that were identified by the committee during its interrogation of the audit reports for water companies. And this particular engagement, Mr. Speaker, we are in the process of doing a report which will be brought to this House on the various, the status of water investments or water entities in counties. Number 3, we had a report writing in Naivasha, Nakuru County, to write reports on the audited reports for water companies in our counties. In consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on funds in counties, Mr. Speaker, we noted a number of issues. Upon conclusion of the interrogation of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statement of public water companies in counties for the financial years 2018-2019, 2019-2020, and 2020-2021, the committee resolved to embark on the interrogation of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statement of funds in counties for the 3 years. During the period under review, the committee has met 23 county executives and governors, and interrogatory reports of the Auditor General on 67 funds in the said counties. Some of these funds includes, among others, bursary funds, disaster and emergency fund, honorable members, what members were talking this afternoon, car loan and mortgage funds, revolving funds, are some of the most common funds in counties. Honorable Speaker, in the interaction with the county executive on the audited report of funds, numerous cross-cutting issues affecting the operations were identified that included: one, most funds were established based on regulations drawn from the PFM Act 2012, which is a national legislation, raising concerns on the legality and effectiveness of the offices of the county attorney. Mr. Speaker, you know, you can only generate regulations on national legislation if you are the cabinet secretary. But the counties have no powers to generate regulations on a national legislation on their own. So we noted that a number of counties have come up with regulations to manage funds based on the PFM. And we have had to give directions to these counties to regularize that and have a correct set of regulations in place. The other issue we noted, Mr. Speaker, was on the low recovery rate of loans advanced by revolving funds to beneficiaries, risking the continuity and sustainability of the funds. For example, Kitui Empowerment Fund had advanced loans amounting to 150 million Kenya shillings, but had only managed to recover 3 million shillings, raising concerns over its sustainability. And many other counties like Trans Nzoia, even Tana River and others. Mr. Speaker, we need, as a committee, to make a decision on whether counties should continue having these so-called revolving funds. Because we noted that in some cases, these funds are used to distribute money to politically correct groups, especially during election period. We noted that a number of counties gave out money during the period of June 2022 and September 2022, which was an election period. And these loans have not been recovered to date. The third observation, Mr. Speaker, was that most car loan and mortgage funds advanced to county executive staff without securing the interests of the county by charging the assets such as land and vehicles. Most loans were given in a very ad hoc manner. No security, no charging of property. And this is a major loophole for privilege of funds in our counties. The fourth major observation, Mr. Speaker, we had instances of multiple allocation of bursaries to a single beneficiary. Lack of acknowledgement of receipts by the benefiting institutions and checks that remained unpresented, leading to stale checks. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the bursary fund and the way it's being managed in a county, you wonder why governors are putting money in bursary funds when bursary is actually a national government function. Because most of these monies, they cannot account for. They cannot give a valid list of institutions where they gave bursaries. They cannot give a valid list of students who are benefited, and there is no acknowledgement. We know that some of the counties, for example, Bungoma County, we had serious concerns, and we have referred that matter to the EACC for further investigation. Number 5, observation. Counties utilizing money allocated to emergency funds but fail to seek necessary approval from the county assemblies as required under Section 114 of the PFM Act 2012. Mr. Speaker, we have a scenario where emergency funds are utilized and the governors don't go back to the county assembly to regularize the approval of funds for emergency. That is common in most counties. And in some counties, we had instances where they have even overshot the threshold, given out money more than the required threshold of 2%. Number 6, Mr. Speaker, irregular inter-fund borrowing, where money is moved from one fund to another without following the laid down procedures. You find a scenario where the county executive invests a fund, takes money away, borrows the money, or you find money is borrowed from one fund to another fund. Mr. Speaker, we saw a lot of that in most counties, and this is unprocedural and also another way of confirming that budget control and performance in most counties is very weak. The other observation is a high number of funds established by counties, limiting their oversight and capacity of counties to fund them, and consume a considerable amount of resources on administrative cost, money that could have been used for other meaningful purposes. For example, Baringo County has established a record 13 funds, whereby some are not resourced, some are not even operational, and some have inadequate funding from the county government, and some are basically a duplicate of the other. The other major observation, Mr. Speaker, is continuous resourcing
Senator
of funds
Osotsi,
has been...
I wish to notify you that you have got under 1 minute to conclude on your statement.
Just give me 2 minutes, I'll be able to finish.
Please rush through it to conclude.
Yeah, continuous resourcing of funds has been adversely affected by the delays in exchequer releases to counties. Honorable Speaker, to address all these issues, the committee has given specific directions in interim manner as a mitigating measures. 1, the governors to ensure pieces of legislation which are inadequate are established through the support of the county assembly, that the governors through the CEC for finance ensure that internal control measures are put in place to address the gaps that we noted. 3, governors must ensure appropriate technologies are deployed to curb incidents of multiple allocation, especially of bursaries, and the governors to ensure that the CEC for finance seek the necessary approvals for, from the county assembly for expenditure incurred in emergency situation. The committee advised counties with high number of funds to reassess the funds and maintain a lean number of funds that are effective and easy to manage. Honorable Speaker, as I wind up, the committee has put in place measures to ensure that the recommendations are implemented. Honorable Speaker, the committee has tabled the report on the matter of non-remittance of pension deduction to counties, and as we are speaking now, the committee is in the process of implementing the report that was adopted by this House. Finally, the committee has adopted 27 reports for water companies which are being processed for tabling with effect from this week. The committee plans to start looking at hospital level 4 and level 5 hospitals in all our 47 counties. because we have noted a lot of accountability issues in those counties. And lastly, in concluding, the interaction with the different county executive, the committee.
Give him 30 seconds to conclude.
30 seconds, yeah. The committee observed that there is an apparent wastage and misappropriation of public resources in counties. We therefore implore the individual senators to enhance their oversight role through the oversight facilitation. And I also wish to implore the House and the committees to hold governors to account for public resources under their control, noting that governors are the chief executive officers of counties as per Article 179 of the Constitution. With that, Honorable Speaker, I submit this report on behalf of the CPIC Committee.
Thank you very much, Senator Osotsi. And that brings us to the conclusion on statements passed once to standing. Sorry. Yes, we still, sorry for that. Thank you for the guidance. We have got the last statement, pursuant to Standing Order 561, the Chairperson, Committee on Delegated Legislation, Senator Mofaya. Proceed to table and present your report.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 56(1)B of the Senate Standing Orders to make a statement on the activities of the Select Committee on Delegated Legislation for the period commencing 29th of January to 31st March 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Senate Select Committee on Delegated Legislation is established under Standing Order 195(1) of the Senate Standing Orders, and its mandate is to scrutinize statutory instruments laid before the Senate. During the period under review, the committee held a total of 15 sittings. Legislative proposals. Honorable Speaker, during the period, the committee gave its comments on the following legislative proposals: the County Statutory Instrument Bill 2024, the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill 2024. On bills, Honorable Speaker, during the period under review, the committee jointly with the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights considered the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 2 of 2023. On committee benchmarking and stakeholders' engagements, Honorable Speaker, the committee traveled to Dodoma and visited the President of Tanzania, Parliament of Tanzania, from Tanzania from the 5th to 9th of February 2024. During this visit, the committee, among other activities, met and shared experiences with the counterpart committees of the National Parliament of Tanzania and along with the leadership of the Committee of the House. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee considered and acceded to the following statutory instruments. 1. The Lake Mbogoria Catchment Protection Area Order, legal notice number 116 of 2023. B. The Karai Wetlands Conservation Area Order, legal notice number 117 of 2023. C. The Mwangaza Hills Catchment Protection Area Order, legal notice number 118 of 2023. D. The Rari Swamp Catchment Protection Area Order number 119 of 2023. E. Circle Societies Specified Non-Deposit Taking Levy Order number 2023, legal notice number 172 of 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee considered the Architects and Quantity Surveyors Amendment by Laws 2023, legal notice number 188 of 2023. The committee observed that the bylaws were among the 1,764 statutory instruments that had expired in January 2023. The committee therefore recommended that the bylaws be withdrawn and published afresh. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee firmed up its resolutions on the draft Center for Parliamentary Studies and Training, CPST, Regulation 2023. The committee communicated its resolution to the Center for Parliamentary Studies and Training for adoption during publication of the same regulations. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee also met the Elgeyo Marakwet County Assembly Delegated Legislation Committee on its capacity building and experience sharing meeting on 17th of March 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the current quarter, the committee will be considering 13 statutory instruments that have been committed to it. To commence its activity, the committee has scheduled a 2-day retreat with the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development to consider the urban areas and cities General Regulation 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, in conclusion, I wish to thank your office and that of the clerk of the Senate for the continuous support according to the committee in understanding its work. Lastly, I also wish to thank the members of the committee for their commitment and diligence in contributions during the committee activities. I thank you, sir, Honorable Speaker, Senator Mwenda Gataya Mofaya, Chairperson, Select Committee on Regulation Legislation, Senator Tharaka Nithi County, today, 29th of March 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mofaya. Honorable members, I will allow a maximum of 2 members to comment on the statements which have just been presented by the respective chairpersons, pursuant to Standing Order 56, as well as those which were earlier on read, pursuant to Standing Order 53. And the time to whoever is going to comment will be limited to 2 minutes. I'm noticing the members who have requested, fine. Before that, the chairpersons who have since read out their reports, you may lay those reports before the clerk on the table. So, Senator Orwoba, proceed to comment. Time is 2
Thank you,
minutes.
Mr. Speaker. I will quickly support this statement by Kakamega Senator, who has been my mentor in debates here, on ensuring that the county government of Kakamega comes to tell us why they are not remitting the pension funds and the national social security funds. And also, he has asked that the total number of employees at the county government of Kakamega also be noted. Mr. Speaker, as I comment this, I also want to say that while we are playing oversight in the county governments, Mr. Speaker, it is also imperative that right now, as we have taken up the Bunge Towers, Mr. Speaker, especially on this total number of employees, Mr. Speaker, I've noted that also here in the Senate, in the Bunge Towers, we are not even sure if we have employees who are seconded, employees who are under PSC, employees who are, in fact, Mr. Speaker, we currently do not even know who is in charge of that building. The security, Mr. Speaker, of Bunge Towers, which is employees who I'm told who are contracted, Mr. Speaker. It's a nightmare. In fact, I'm told it's the precincts of parliament, but the security that we have there, Mr. Speaker, is very wanting. We don't even know if those are sergeant at arms. And so as we are having oversight here, Mr. Speaker, I want to compel our commissioners and the PSC to also ensure that the precincts of parliament are handled as the precincts of parliament, and that we can be able to understand who really is handling the security there, Mr. Speaker, because it is a going concern. And I think most members in this house will also agree with me that we have stayed away from Bunge Towers since it was launched because of the security that is there and the personnel who are apparently contracted and not really under Parliament, Mr. Speaker. My concern actually really is that there are cartels there who are claiming to be security, being led by the head of that security. I think it's called Majiwa, Mr. Speaker. I've written a statement on the same as well. I am waiting to read it on the House, but we are staying away from Bunge Towers until something is done. And I think this is really important for us to speak about this here.
Senator Moses Kajwang, and as I had directed earlier on members, I had directed that I will allow only 2 members to comment, so Senator Kajwang is the last senator to comment on the statements. We will proceed to the next after that.
If it's only 2 members, I wish to withdraw for Senator Mundigi to comment.
Very well.
Thank you.
Senator Mundigi, take the floor.
Asante Bwana Spika, mimi naunga mkono kamati ambayo tuambia vile wamefanya kazi, tunaunga kamati mkono kwa sababu tunajua katika ukatuzi sisi maseneta ni mambo ya devolution na wamefanya kazi nzuri, lakini hata kama ni hivyo mpaka tuendelee kufanya kazi tuweze kusaidia county siweze kupata pesa nyingi, ndio kusitokee mambo kama ile imetokea. Tunajua county nyingi hazina pesa ya kutosha, na ndio wakati mwingine tukifika tutasema ni mtu mmoja kwa shilingi moja, kwa sababu unakuta county zile zingine zinapata pesa na ukienda masinani hakuna kazi inafanya, na kaunti zingine siko na deni nyingi. Unakuta saa ingine kuna vita ya governor na MCA na executive. Kwa hivyo mimi ningeunga mkono ukatuzi iweze kuwekelewa maanane. Kama sasa unakuta mzigo mingi iko kwa magavana na wako na kazi nyingi, ndio unaona makosa ingine imefanyika, kwa sababu magavana ambayo wamechaguliwa kwa hii kipindi ya serikali ya Kenya Kwanza na Azimio tukiwa pamoja, tumeangalia vile wanafanya kazi, aswa akina Ndanda wale wamechaguliwa. Kwa hiyo naunga mkono kwa hiyo kamati ya wasosi, lakini mpaka tuangalie vile county zile siko na mandeni vile itapunguzwa, ndio tuweze kuona vile tutasaidia kujenga county zile zingine, kwa sababu tunajua Senate pia tunataka pesa, na hiyo ingine ni waangalie mambo ya finance vile national government MPs watatupatia pesa ya kutosha. Asante Bwana Speaker, naunga mkono.
Members, that now brings us to a closure on comments on the statements, and I'll ask the clerk to call the next order, order number 8.
Order number 8, the County Oversight and Accountability Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2024, first reading. An act of Parliament to give effect to Articles 96(1) and 3 of the Constitution to enhance public financial accountability by the county governments and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 9, the County Civic Education Bill, Senate Bills number 4 of 2024, a bill for an act of Parliament to provide a legal framework for undertaking civic education in counties.
Next order.
Order number 10, the County Statistics Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2024, a bill for an act of Parliament to provide a framework for the collection, compilation, analysis, and dissemination of statistical information, to establish a county statistics office, to establish the office of the county statistician, and for connected purposes.
That is, honorable members, order number 10. Order number 11 was dealt with earlier on. Order number 12, this is the Maternal, Newborn and Child Health Bill. Since Senator Beatrice Ogola is not in, this was on second reading. We will defer it to the next reading. The next order that is on motions, 13, we are deferring it to the next session as well. Order number 14, hoja kuidhinisha kwa ruzuku ya masharti kwa ujenzi wa uwanja wa manispaa ya Mombasa. This is a resumption of the debate that we had previously. We defer again. Order number 15, deferred to the next sitting. Order number 16, deferred again. Order number 17, deferred to the next session. Order number 18.
Order number 18, motion, report of the Select Committee on County Public Accounts on its consideration of the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of West Pokot County Assembly for the financial year 2018-2019, and the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Isiolo, Kiambu, Kitui, Marsabit, Narok, Nyamira, Trans Nzoia, West Pokot, and Murang'a County Assemblies for the financial year 2019-2020.
Chairperson of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Senate adopts the report of the Select Committee on County Public Accounts on its consideration of the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of West Pokot County Assembly for the financial year 2018-2019, and reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Isiolo, Kiambu, Kitui, Marsabit, Narok, Nyamira, Trans Nzoia, West Pokot, and Murang'a County Assemblies for the financial year 2019-2020, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 7th of March, 2024. Mr. Speaker, for the first 8 years of devolution, County Assembly financial statements did not get the attention of the Senate. We concentrated mostly on the county executives. And it was for a good reason, because county executives enjoyed 90% of the budget of county governments. But then the question arose, can the assembly oversight itself? Because initially, we thought that county assemblies, through their respective oversight committees, could review and consider the reports of the Auditor General and make recommendations. We thought that the architecture of the law, the County Governments Act and the PFM Act were strong enough to allow the county assembly members to summon the clerk, to summon the other accounting officers and responsible officers within the assembly and put them to task on issues of financial malpractice flagged by the Office of the Auditor General. But then again, Mr. Speaker, a practical challenge was brought before us. The question was, the clerk is the accounting officer of the county assembly. And if the clerk does not respond to invitations by the Public Accounts Committee, and the Public Accounts Committee issues summons, summons can only be issued under the hand of the clerk of the county assembly. And so it was impossible for the clerk to summon himself. And it was impossible for the clerk to summon any of his officers. And so you would find a situation where there would be collusion amongst those charged with fiduciary responsibility in county assemblies to frustrate the work of Public Accounts Committee. That is how the Senate started inviting county assembly service boards, the speakers, and clerks of county assemblies to respond to the issues raised by the Auditor General. It is not an idle pursuit, because whereas the PFM Act aspires that 7% of county budget should be allocated to the legislative function, over time the Senate has been very generous, and we have kept lifting the ceiling. And right now, I would make an approximate average of 12%. 12% of county government budgets are currently channeled to county assemblies. There are some county assemblies that are on 13, 14%. There are some county assemblies that are on 7, 8%. But on average, you'll find that of the 400 billion that today we have voted to allocate to counties, at least 10% or 11% of that, probably 45 billion, will go to county assemblies. Therefore, there is that need for county assemblies to be held to account. Mr. Speaker, this has brought about some feelings that the Senate is overstepping its mandate. And I've seen in some cases some county assemblies that have argued that a county assembly and the national parliament are at the same level in terms of legislative oversight and representation and all the things, all the functions that are granted to us in the Constitution, and therefore the financial matters of county assemblies should never be brought to parliament. But in as much as we've got our respective powers, there is no institution that is above the law, and there is no institution that is beyond oversight. And that is why even the national parliament, the financial statements of the national parliament, particularly the Parliamentary Service Commission, are audited by the Auditor General and tabled to the respective committee. County assemblies have argued that since the reports of the PAC go to Parliament, therefore the reports of the county assembly service boards should also go to the county assemblies. I look forward, Mr. Speaker, to the day when our county assemblies will not be having adverse opinions and disclaimers. It is absurd for a county assembly whose primary duty is to facilitate the staff and to facilitate members of parliament to have adverse opinions. We have seen habits that are unthinkable here in the national parliament. Members, they go on trips, they get per diems, there is no accountability, there is no submission of returns. I look forward to the day that county assemblies will be run with a level of efficiency when it comes to financial management and controls as the national parliament is run. Mr. Speaker, the report that we tabled on the 7th of March 2024 was quite dated because they dealt with financial statements for the financial years 2018-2019 all the way to 2019-2020. It is the desire of the committee that I have the privilege to chair that we can be current. At the moment, in the hearings that we have scheduled, we have decided to consolidate the financial statements. And as we speak, county assemblies are in the last round of appearing for the financial year up to 2022. And by the end of this session, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure this House that we will be bringing up-to-date, current, and live reports from the county assemblies. But I'm also optimistic that of the 47 county assemblies, we'll be having more of them with unqualified opinions. And to the county assemblies out there, if the accounting officer and the finance team adheres to the requirements of the PFM Act and does the report in line with the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, and you have an unqualified opinion, I can guarantee those county assemblies that we'll have no business calling them to appear before the Senate. But if a county assembly has persistently adverse reports, like in the case of Nairobi, or persistent disclaimers, like in the case of Migori, I can assure them that we will not tire to teach them, we will not tire to interrogate them, and we will not tire to probe them so that they can do the right thing. There are a number of cross-cutting issues that apply to most of the county assemblies. Mr. Speaker, previously, we realized that audit issues tend to rotate around the same things. And that is the reason why we brought to this House the first fiduciary risks report. At the moment, we are working with the Parliamentary Budget Office to come up with the second version of the fiduciary risks report. That report summarizes the cross-cutting and the common themes in the county assemblies and in the county executives. For example, Mr. Speaker, with respect to the county assemblies that we are discussing today, the common challenge of lateness in submission of documents. And most accounting officers do not realize that this is an offense. It is an offense under the Public Audit Act. It is an offense under the PFM Act. When you do not provide documents to the Auditor General for verification within the timelines that have been prescribed in the Public Audit Act and in the Constitution, because the timelines are constitutional. Mr. Speaker, my committee is considering giving effect to the Public Audit Act, and one day we will bring a recommendation to this House that those officers who frustrate the work of the Auditor General should be found guilty of offense of violation of Section 52 of the Public Audit Act that says no public officer or custodian of public records should, without justifiable reasons, prevent the Auditor General from accessing those financial records. Another common theme in most county assemblies is weak record management systems, and thus it casts doubts on suitability and qualifications of the staff who are manning those record management systems. Mr. Speaker, sir, the county assemblies have had a challenge in applying proper accounting practices as stipulated by the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board. Even though this report that we are laying excludes certain counties, I'd like to bring it to the attention of the Senate that recently there was an uproar within professional circles, particularly amongst professional accountants, when a county assembly came before the Senate, and when we probed who had signed the financial statements, it emerged that the financial statements were signed by somebody without the professional or functional capacity to sign those financial statements. And Mr. Speaker, it is not the first time we have seen that. We have seen county governments that have a budget that should know better to hire professionals to render professional services using quacks and unqualified persons. And as such, we have taken issue with the Auditor General that where financial statements are signed by quacks, they should not be admissible, and the Auditor General should report to the Senate as such. Mr. Speaker, the issue of reconciliations is a headache to most of the county assemblies, as it is to most of the county executives. We have taken the view that persons have been hired to do reconciliations in these entities. And nowadays, we do not stop by pointing fingers at the Speaker or the clerk of the county assembly. Nowadays, we have gotten to the point of naming the officers.
Senator Kajwang, it is 6:30 p.m. When the House resumes, you will have a balance of 50 minutes to table on your report in your motion. Sorry. Honorable members, it is now 6:30 p.m., time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until Thursday, 2nd of May, 2024 at 2:30 p.m.